Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto Fuinjutsu Prodigy. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. It was another regular day for Naruto, running from the villagers, attempting to fend for himself in Konoha. It is tough for an 8-year-old to survive when he is hated and hunted by his village. His stubborn refusal of help from the Sandaime didn't make his situation any easier either. Man, it would be nice if I could just get some spices in peace once in a while. All this evasion isn't really my thing, but the Hokage doesn't like it when I use my abilities. What can a guy do, I guess? Muses Naruto as he ducks into a dark alley with a bag containing his required herbs and spices he can't find outside the village. I'd best get outside the wall before the villagers spot me again. And with that, the young boy took off for the wall, eager to get back to his cave outside the confines of Konoha. Naruto Uzumaki was a self-proclaimed recluse. Upon discovering his resident within his mindscape when he was 6, he had brought it up with the Sandaime, Hiruzen. Flashback. Hiruzen was sitting in his office working on the bane of his existence when he heard a much-needed distraction, in the form of a knock, on his door. "Enter," he replied, and to his surprise a young red-headed boy whom he knew very well entered his office. "What can I do for you today, Naruto? Have you been having trouble with the villagers?" "No, but I think I know why I have trouble with them now, Hokage Jiji." Caught off guard by this and hoping his suspicions were wrong, Hiruzen replied, "Oh, do tell?" "Well, I had a dream last night, but it wasn't like a normal dream. It felt like I was trapped inside my own mind. After wandering around for a while I came across a large pit in a field. Contained in the pit was a big fox. He had 9 tails, and there was a tag with, 'Seal,' on the bars over top of the pit. I tried talking to the fox but he simply glanced at me with one eye then went back to sleep," explained the boy. "I see," the Hokage said, "it must be his mindscape, and his first meeting with the Kyuubi. He is smart enough to figure this out on his own, so I should come clean about everything before he comes to any conclusions and decides he can't trust me," the Sandaime reasoned. "What you experienced was not a dream, I believe it was your mindscape. And the fox you encountered would be the Kyuubi no Kitsune. How much do you know about the events that happened 6 years ago, Naruto?" "Well, I know the Kyuubi attacked the village 6 years ago, and the Yondaime sacrificed himself to defeat the beast. I know many people died that night," he replied. "You would be correct in saying that the Yondaime defeated the beast, but he did not kill it. The Kyuubi is a Biju, and a Biju cannot be killed. If they are killed they will disperse and reform in a few years to sow destruction in their feral state. The only way to safely suppress a Biju is to seal it inside a newborn, whose chakra coils have not yet developed. On the night the Yondaime fought the Kyuubi, he and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, sacrificed themselves to seal the beast inside their newborn son, Naruto Uzumaki." Hiruzen explained solemnly, hoping the boy wouldn't take this too hard. "Okay, so you mean to tell me that I have the Kyuubi sealed inside of me, and that I am the illegitimate son of the Yondaime and the Red Death of Konoha? That is a lot to take in. Why wasn't I told earlier?" Naruto questioned. "A select few shinobi councilmen and myself decided that it would not be safe to tell you of your lineage, due to the Yondaime's enemies he made during the Third Great War. As such we were going to wait until you either turned 16, or became a Chunin to tell you of your lineage and inheritance," the Hokage explained. "Since you know everything now, I must ask that you do not spread this information lightly. It could put you in great danger if word spread outside the village walls. If you could find it within you to forgive me for deceiving you these past 6 years, I would like to offer you the keys to the Namikaze estate, and everything that your parents left for you." "But Hokage Jiji, if I were to move into the estate wouldn't it create issues within the village? It would be safer if I continued on as is. I will take my rightful inheritance when I can better protect myself. I will take any scrolls they left me however, as I can maybe learn something from them," the boy replied. Did I just hear what I think I heard come out of a 6-year-old? His reasoning and deduction skills are incredible. "As you wish, Naruto, I will retrieve the scrolls and bring them to you at your cave. Speaking of which, do you still insist on living in that cave? It is harder to keep an eye on you and react appropriately if something happens when you are outside the walls." Hiruzen said, "You always have an Anbu watching me anyways, and the villagers don't see me as much when I keep to myself outside the walls anyways, so it causes less problems for everyone." Plus, I like the peace and quiet of my cave, and my eyes don't play tricks of people I don't want them to out there. He explained, as you wish Naruto, I will see you tonight with your scrolls. Do you think you could prepare a stew for us? I always have liked your cooking. Hiruzen requested. I wouldn't mind the company. See you tonight Hokage Gigi, the boy replied and swiftly left the office, heading for the secret tunnel under the wall to his cave. I always forget how powerful his eyes are. I wonder if he will be able to enroll in the academy or not, Hiruzen mused while he searched his safe for the scrolls. Flashback end. It had been 2 years since Naruto had learned of his tenant and his lineage. Since then he has spent most of his time studying the many scrolls his parents had left him. He still hasn't found any scrolls explaining his eyes however. His eyes are a bright yellow, with 4 tomo around the pupil, which was a slit instead of a circle. He can't turn them off, like the similar in appearance Sharingan. His dark red hair accompanying his eerie eyes were off-putting for most people he met, and if that didn't do it, his status as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki did. With his eyes he is able to cast powerful genjutsu without hand signs, simply by imagining the scenario and making eye contact with his target. This is the main reason he chooses to live in a cave outside the village, because he lost control one time and the victim committed suicide from the fear induced by the genjutsu. It was a genin that was chasing him through the village on his birthday, throwing rocks at him. Naruto didn't mean to cast an illusion on him, but he was so emotionally distraught he couldn't help it. The Hokage found him in a cave a couple days later, and ever since Naruto has refused to live in the village until he can control his eyes. So for the past 2 years, Naruto has been studying his inheritance from his parents, learning what he can and waiting until he hears from the Sandaime if he can attend the academy like a normal kid. Deeply immersed in his scrolls, he didn't hear the footsteps echoing from the entrance of his cave. Hello Naruto, reading anything interesting? Hiruzen asked with an amused expression on his face. Naruto jumped in the air with a screech. What the hell Hokage Gigi, don't sneak up on me like that. He yelled in shock. What do you mean sneak up on you? I knocked on the cave wall and announced my arrival. Hiruzen replied, clearly enjoying the fact that he could still sometimes surprise his favorite pseudo-grandson. Oh, well I was rather into this scroll. It explains how to do Fuinjutsu without ink and paper. You just do some hand signs and write the seal in the air with your fingers. Then you apply your hand to the intended target area. Cool huh? I can already do the exploding seal. Wanna see? He exclaimed excitedly. Whoa, let's not blow ourselves up in your cave alright? Show me outside. Hiruzen replied with an eye smile. This is quite the technique if it works like I think it works. Nobody but Kushina and Jiraiya knew how to do it. I'm sure this boy will be a Fuinjutsu master when he is older. Hiruzen mused as he walked beside the young boy. Okay, check this out. Naruto yelled as he did 3 quick hand signs then wiggled his fingers on his left hand around, before jabbing a tree trunk. When he jumped away you could see the inner circle of the seal count down from 3 before it exploded, demolishing the tree. Whoa, that was larger than I meant for it to be, whoops. Naruto said sheepishly. That is a very impressive technique Naruto. I don't think I know anyone aside from your Kasan and Jiraiya that can do Fuinjutsu like that. You're a natural. Now don't you want to know why I came to visit you today? Hiruzen asked. Oh yeah, let's go back inside and we can chat. The boy exclaimed before leading the Hokage back inside by his sleeve. Alright Hokage Gigi, what did you want to talk about? Naruto asked. Well, remember when you asked me about whether or not you could enroll in the academy? The council has came to a decision, and because you do not have control over your eyes, they have voted that you should not enroll in the academy. Before you get upset, I have decided on a secondary course of action that will ensure you can get the training you require. I have assigned our genjutsu specialist to train you herself until such time as you gain control over your eyes, and then we will look at either enrolling you in the academy, or having you challenge the graduation exams and becoming a genin that way. How does that sound? Hiruzen explained. Wait, you really mean it? You found someone willing to train me? Do they want to train me? I don't want to be a burden to anyone. If she has more important duties to attend to, I can continue as I have been. I don't mind, Naruto replied with a slightly dejected and lonely look in his eyes. Why don't you ask her yourself if she wants to train you? Kurenai, come in here would you? Hiruzen said. After that, Kurenai Yuhi walked into the cave and sat down across the fire, cooking pot on a wooden tree bench. Yes, Hokage-sama, is this the young boy you were telling me about? She asked. Yes, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, this is Kurenai. When I told her about your eyes, she expressed great interest in wanting to work with you. She is arguably the best genjutsu specialist we have in Konoha. Hiruzen stated. Wow, your eyes are really pretty, miss. Do you really want to train me? Naruto asked, more than a little bit of hope in his tone. After hearing about you, Naruto, of course I want to teach you. Hell, if my hunch is correct, by the end of the next 4 years you'll be teaching me. She replied with a wink. Naruto was stunned. He looked silently from the Hokage back to Kurenai with his mouth hanging open, wondering if this was a dream. Coming to his senses, he made a hand sign and shouted, "Release." When he blinked and looked back up at his current guests, he tilted his head to the side and looked awestruck at them again. Kurenai leaned over to the Hokage and asked, "Is this normal? Should we do something? He'll come to shortly. He hasn't encountered anyone who wanted to spend time with him that he can remember, so this seems surreal to him. Most people are scared of his eyes, and those who aren't hate him for his situation," the Hokage whispered back. "I understand, this might be a long 4 years, she replied. It had been 4 years since Naruto was taken under the wing of Konoha's genjutsu mistress Kurenai Yuhi. During those years Naruto took 1 year to learn to control his eyes and promptly followed with challenging the academy graduation exams. Upon his early graduation at the age of 9, Naruto approached Kurenai and the Hokage about joining Anbu. After a long and heated debate between the three, Naruto convinced them to allow him to join Anbu only after Kurenai deemed him at a Chunin level. Flashback. Hokage Jiji, I want to join Anbu. I want to go on missions and get stronger. How can I do that if I don't have a team and I don't get to go on missions and I don't get to test my abilities against other villages since we aren't at war? Naruto exclaimed, frustrated with the lack of progress he had made over the past 2 hours going back and forth with Hiruzen and Kurenai. I understand you don't want me to join Anbu because of their intense practices, and I know of the dangers of route, but I can handle myself when it comes to internal village affairs regarding who controls me. Naruto spit out with venom. Upon hearing this, Hiruzen immediately motioned for his Anbu to leave the office. Get me dog and then vacate the office please, he stated, a very serious look on his face. Naruto-kun, we will wait until dog gets here, and then we can continue this discussion. Hiruzen turned back to Naruto as he spoke. Seconds later, an Anbu with a dog mask appeared, kneeled beside the Sandame's desk. You called, Hokage-sama. Dog spoke. Yes, allow me to activate the privacy seals, and you will understand why I have called you. Hiruzen replied as he made a couple hand signs, activating his seals around the room. Now, the reason I called you is because Uzumaki-san here wishes to join Anbu, despite knowing the risks associated with the multiple organizations of influence within the village. He knows about route? Dog asked, more to himself than to the room. That he does, how I do not know, but I should know by now not to underestimate his deduction skills. I believe Naruto-kun here would benefit greatly from joining Anbu, however I am reluctant to allow him to join without having certain precautions in place. I believe it would be best to wait until Kurenai-san believes that he is at a Chunin level before we allow him to join Anbu. I also think that if he is to join Anbu, he should be directly underneath your tutelage. What are your thoughts on this? Hiruzen asked as he turned from dog to Kurenai. Well, Hokage-sama, I think you and I both know by now that once Naruto-kun here has set his mind to anything, he will not rest until he accomplishes it. As such, I find your terms for his admittance agreeable. I don't wish to lose my favorite little nightmare, but I can't think of anyone better to oversee his well-being than Dog-san here. Kurenai explained with some reluctance in her voice. If this is what you wish, I will accept my mission, Hokage-sama, Dog replied. There is no way he will be able to reach Chunin level anytime soon, is there? I've heard the rumors of his advanced learning curve, but still. He only just passed the Genin graduation exams. Dog thought to himself. Additionally, I would like you to drop out of Anbu and return to join a Genin team once your age group graduates from the academy. Is that acceptable to you, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen asked. Hi, thank you Hokage Jiji. I will be at Chunin level in no time, just you wait. Naruto stated with a confident smirk on his face. He was bubbling with excitement. Finally, I can continue getting stronger. No offense to Kurenai-sensei, but she has been rather limited in what Jiji has allowed her to teach me the last year. She was right about me ending up teaching her about genjutsu as well. I need to find someone who can teach me about Fuinjutsu soon. Maybe after I'm out of Anbu. Alright Naruto-kun, you are dismissed. Dog, Kurenai, please stay a moment please. Hiruzen said with a wave of his hand at Naruto. The little nightmare, as Kurenai calls him, was much too excited to ponder the last statement and practically floated out of the room, stuck in his musings. What is the matter Hokage-sama? Kurenai questioned. Kakashi, I don't want you to reveal who you are to Naruto. I want him to know you only as dog. If he truly wishes to join Anbu, then I want to see if he can maintain the distance relationship between partners. I am going to send word to Jiraiya. I believe he will be very interested in his godson's current abilities. Hopefully in a few years he will return to the village to train him and get his Kyuubi chakra control at a safer level. That way we can hopefully avoid any further incidents like you had to deal with Kurenai. I will leave you to fill Kakashi in on the details of the occurrence. Hiruzen replied. Flashback end. We currently find Naruto sitting in the back of his age group's academy classroom in his standard Anbu gear, minus his pitch black mask, waiting silently for team assignments. Hiruzen had approached Naruto about leaving Anbu and joining his age group for genin teams. He successfully convinced Naruto that making more friends his current age would greatly benefit both him and the village as a whole. Sitting beside his only friend in the room, the Hyuga heiress, Naruto patiently awaited the instructor's entrance while ignoring the looks of inquisition he was receiving from the rest of the classroom. A boy with red marks on his cheeks and a puppy sitting on his head finally got fed up with the mysterious stranger sitting beside his crush and decided to approach. Hey new guy, who are you? I ain't seen you around here before. And how do you know Hinata? She doesn't seem like the kind of person to hang around goons like you, he jabbed. Naruto opened one of his eyes, not missing the look of surprise on the Inuzuka's face, and settled his stare on the boy. After successfully making the boy uncomfortable with his silent one-eyed stare, Naruto calmly replied, I am one of the people to be teamed with this age group. As for who Hinata spends her time with, don't you think it is up to her to decide, and not you, Kiba? That eye, is it a Sharingan? No, it's not red, it's yellow. But what is it? I've never heard of a dojutsu that is like that. Kiba thought, all while stunned by the gaze of a yellow eye with 4 tomos circling a black slit for a pupil. The predatory gaze was severely unnerving for him, his animalistic instincts screaming at him to turn and run with his tail tucked between his legs. Akumaru whined when Kiba spoke, how do you know my name? I didn't introduce myself to you. I know you didn't, but I was briefed on everyone who I would possibly be teamed with. It is only logical to know who you will be teamed up with beforehand. Briefed? What are you, ex-Anbu? No one talks like that. Kiba scoffed. Kiba-kun, please don't antagonize Naruto-kun anymore. He is an old friend I met through Kurenai-sensei. Hinata finally chimed in. Since you inquired, I am ex-Anbu. Now if you would so kindly return to your seat. I was enjoying the peacefulness beside Hina-chan before you made yourself known. Naruto states before closing his eyes again, waving Kiba off. Kiba grunts and turns around, returning to his seat. What is that guy's deal, and there is no way he is ex-Anbu. He looks like he is the same age as us, Kiba ponders. He would have continued his inquiries, but the boy's eyes unsettled him greatly. Naruto-kun, you didn't have to activate your eyes on Kiba-kun. He is harmless, really. Hinata whispered to Naruto. I know, but I didn't cast anything on him, just opened them to unnerve him a bit. He wouldn't have left me alone otherwise, Naruto replies without looking over. I don't know why it unnerves people. I think they are mesmerizing. Hinata muses more to herself than to Naruto. How do you know I'm not using them to influence you like that, Hinata-chan? Naruto whispers, adding the honorific to increase her blush. Hinata lightly hits him on the shoulder, stammering the whole time. You wouldn't dare Naruto-kun. She stammers out, poking her index fingers together and blushing. Naruto just winks in response, returning to his silent musings while waiting for the teacher to show up. After another 15 minutes, Iruka enters the room with a folder in his hands. Hello everyone, and congratulations on graduating from the academy. I have your team assignments here, so please listen up, as Naruto tunes him out, listening for his name. Team 7 is Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. Jonin Sensei is Kakashi Hitaki. Iruka states, getting a grunt from Naruto. I was hoping to be on your team Hinata, too bad. Naruto whispers to her, getting a blush and a nod in response. Team 8 is Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Hinata Hyuga with Kurenai Yuhi as the Jonin sensei. Interesting, I didn't know Kurenai sensei was going to be taking a team this year. Makes sense I guess. Maybe she got sick of me, Naruto whispers with a smirk, receiving silent admonishment from Hinata. She would never get sick of you Naruto-kun. Maybe she just couldn't get her request approved for you to be on her team, Hinata replies. Team 9 is still in rotation from last year, so Team 10 is Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. Sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. Now that all the teams are assigned, please wait patiently for your team leaders for further instruction. Iruka said as he left the room. Immediately after Asuma and Kurenai entered. Team 10 meet me at Akamichi Barbecue in 15. Asuma barked as he shunshined away. His students left, with a muttering of, troublesome. Team 8 meet me at Training Grounds 8 in 20 minutes, Kurenai said, but before she could leave she caught sight of a mop of red hair. Did you get tired of me Kurenai-sensei? I thought you would have told me if you were taking a genin team this year. Naruto spoke, with a smirk on his face. Naruto-kun, I wanted to surprise you by being your sensei again, but Hokage-sama argued that you had already taught me enough, and that I should share you, she replied with affection clear in her voice. Naruto smiled in return. Well I guess that makes sense, dinner tonight, for old time's sake? It's been a couple months since I got to cook for you too, Naruto questioned while glancing at Hinata. Hinata blushed and nodded, while Kurenai winked at him and shouted, Team 8, let's go you're gonna be late, as she also shunshined away. Sasuke glanced at Naruto with a confused look on his face, questioning him about the odd interaction only to find Naruto with his eyes closed again after Team 8 left. He grunted before returning to ignoring the fawning of Sakura. A couple hours pass before Naruto starts to get irritated with his new sensei. About to make his irritation known, the door slid open to reveal a tall man with gravity-defying silver hair, a face mask covering his lower face and his headband covering one eye. His nose was buried in a little orange book, seemingly ignoring the three kids in the room. After a grunt, he looked up. He seems moody, must still be brooding. I see I also have the civilian pink-haired Kunoichi and Naruto. I wonder how long it will take for him to figure it out, Kakashi mused from over the top of his book. Heiai smiled at the three before opening his mouth. Training Grounds 7 in 5 minutes, don't be late or I'll send you back here, he spoke, before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Naruto stood and also disappeared in a swirl of leaves, leaving a startled Sakura and Sasuke. Well, guess we better hustle, Sakura said before darting out the door with Sasuke on her heels. So, you changed your mind on teaching kids Dog-san? Naruto spoke from beside Kakashi. I didn't expect you to make the connection so quick Naruto, as deft as always I see. Naruto deadpanned, your mask doesn't hide your hair, no one else in the village has hair like that, he replied, slightly offended that Kakashi had such low expectations of his deduction skills. I guess so, maybe I should have dyed my hair before taking this job. Kakashi mumbled to himself, earning another face fault from Naruto. So, you gonna put us through the teamwork test with the bells? You might fool Sakura but I can't imagine the Uchiha not catching on to such a simple test, Naruto changed the subject. Well I was going to use that test, I even borrowed Hokage-sama's special bells, but since you already figured it out, I guess the point would be moot. He shrugged. Soon after Sakura and Sasuke arrived, both out of breath. How'd you get here so fast what is your name again? Sakura asked between breaths. Naruto Uzumaki, and I shunshined here. Why didn't you guys? He replied, slightly confused as to why they took so long. What do you mean why didn't we? We don't know how. That isn't a genin level technique. She almost screeched. Damn, I see why she is called a banshee. I might have to pick up some earplugs if I want to get any peace and quiet between her fawning over the Uchiha and her screeching in response to anything else. Well, I guess the academy is slipping since the war. Kakashi. Naruto joked, earning an eye smile out of Kakashi. Yes I suppose so, but then again, it takes a lot of chakra control to perform, and since the academy doesn't teach much chakra control, they can't safely learn the technique. Maybe I'll teach them eventually. Now that everyone is here, let's do some introductions before this test. Kakashi addressed his 3 genin. Naruto groaned, having already expected this from his former comrade. Naruto Uzumaki, I like learning about my lineage and spending time with people close to me. I dislike ignorance, I'll keep my dreams to myself. I am a Genjutsu and Fuinjutsu specialist. Naruto rattled off the answers to the usual topics of these introductions, before looking towards Sakura. Okay. I am Sakura Haruno. I like Sasuke-kun. I dislike fangirls of Sasuke-kun. My dream is to prove to Sasuke-kun that I am his best choice for a girlfriend. I don't really have any specialties. Sakura spoke, all the while looking at Sasuke, which earned her an annoyed grunt from the moody Uchiha. Sasuke Uchiha. I don't have any likes that concern you. I dislike being compared to my traitorous brother. I strive to grow strong enough to redeem my clan and take revenge on a certain someone. I would probably be better at ninjutsu and taijutsu than anything else. I'm a close to mid-range fighter. Sasuke stated, earning an intrigued look from Kakashi. Alright, well, now that that is out of the way, let's move on to the tests. Since Naruto here figured out the original test already, I'll improvise a bit and evaluate your individual skills. Sakura, you're first, Kakashi explained, walking out into the clearing, waiting on Sakura to attack him. Wait, what about your introductions? She screeched, getting a wince from Naruto at the sheer volume of her cry. Oh right, I'm Kakashi Hitaki, that is all you need to know. Now come at me with the intent to kill, or I will ship you back to the academy, he replied, not putting down his book or even looking at her. Frustrated, Sakura charged at him, throwing 2 kunai before getting in taijutsu range. Kakashi simply stepped to the side, before dodging her barrage of punches and kicks, silently making note of her sloppy form and many openings in her technique. This continued for 10 minutes before Sakura had tired herself out too much to continue, and plopped down on the ground, having not landed a hit. Done already? Guess you've got quite a bit of work ahead of you if you want to stay on this team, Kakashi said emotionlessly before pointing back to the other 2 genin. Sakura, more than slightly dejected at the blatant insult of her skill, walked over to the sitting area and laid down, too exhausted to argue right now. Sasuke, up next, Kakashi ordered, still not taking his eyes off his book. Sasuke leapt over to a bush for cover, planning out his course of action. He fended off Sakura without looking away from his book. I'm going to have to bring out everything I have if I want to even scratch him. Sasuke reasoned, before throwing a barrage of shuriken, watching as they hit their mark, only for Kakashi to be replaced with a log. Damn, substitution. Now he knows where I am, have to find him and act quickly. Sasuke dashed to the next area of cover, and spotted a certain Jonin lazily lounging in a tree reading a book. Smirking, Sasuke crept up to him as quietly as possible, before launching into a physical assault of punches and kicks. Finding no success in his physical assault, Sasuke jumped back before weaving a couple hand signs, fire style, great fireball jutsu. He shouted, spewing a giant fireball out of his mouth at Kakashi. Thinking he had landed a hit, Sasuke cockily walked forward, only to find a scorched log on the ground. Frowning, Sasuke went stiff when he felt a kunai point in his lower back. Not bad, but we've got some things to work on. Now let's get back to the others, Kakashi spoke, before disappearing from the forest. When Sasuke returned to the group and dropped down, tired from his test, Kakashi spoke, alright, I think I have a gauge on your abilities. We will meet back here tomorrow at 8 AM for training and possibly a mission if things go well. Dismissed. Before he could shunshin away, Sakura spoke up. Wait, what about Naruto? You didn't test him. How do we know he isn't useless? I don't need to test Naruto, he was my partner in Anbu, and I don't feel like having nightmares for a week simply for a spar, or losing function of my limbs for that matter. Kakashi replied before disappearing, leaving 2 genin with mouths on the ground, and an apparently napping red-haired boy. Was he serious, Naruto? You were in the Anbu? And what did he mean by nightmares? Why would he have nightmares from sparring you? Sakura asked, dumbfounded by the Anbu revelation. Sasuke was quietly hoping for an answer to Sakura's questions as well. He needed to size up his competition. Yes, I am ex-Anbu. I spent almost 3 years with Kakashi-sensei as my senior officer. As for the nightmares, let's just say I have a very special and potent form of genjutsu I utilize as part of my fighting style. I earned the moniker, Red Nightmare, for a reason. Naruto replied, as he opened his eyes, flaring his dojutsu and activating a weak genjutsu. Sakura and Sasuke went wide-eyed at the eyes, before gasping in fear as a giant fox appeared behind him. It was staring right at them, almost as if it was peering through their souls, saliva dripping from its feral grin. As soon as it appeared it was gone, just as Naruto's eyes changed to normal blue eyes. What was that? Was that a genjutsu? But you didn't use any hand signs or say anything. Was that a Sharingan? But it was yellow. Sasuke continued to rattle off questions, still trying to wrap his mind around what happened. Sakura, still paralyzed in fear, had her mouth open and her hands clutching at her chest. That is my dojutsu, and it's classified, so no, I will not tell you about it, Naruto replied. Now, I have dinner with Kurenai sensei and Hina-chan, so I will be going. See you all tomorrow, he said as he shunshined to his cave to prepare for the meal in a couple hours. This is going to be a long few months. Team 7 had been doing D-rank missions for a month now, and it was clearly evident to Kakashi that his team was growing irritated with the horse. I know Naruto has figured out that these D-rank missions are simply a way to test the team's patience, and we won't get any good missions until someone expresses their disdain to Hokage-sama. I wonder why he hasn't said anything yet. Is he testing Sasuke and Sakura's patience? Always crafty, that one, Kakashi mused while waiting for his team's 86th D-rank assignment. A Chunin hummed and hawed as he sifted through the missions available. Ah, here we go, this one should prove challenging, he stated, with a bit of venom in his voice, looking at Naruto as he passed the scroll to Kakashi. A smug smirk crossed the Chunin's face as he watched Kakashi open the scroll. Well, my cute little genin, it looks like we are on tour duty again, he said, eyes smiling while his team let out a collective shudder at the memories of their last encounter with the appropriately dubbed Bane of the Genin Hellspawn. You know the drill, get the cat back to the daimyo's wife by 1500 today, no later. I'll be observing from the shadows. Sakura, your team lead this time, Kakashi stated before he shunshined away. The team let out a groan at the thought of dealing with this cat for a 7th time in the past month. This is the last straw, they all thought simultaneously. Giving their respective teammates a glance, everyone nodded and walked out the door. Alright Hokage-sama, I've had enough of these D-rank missions. I cannot handle another Hellspawn retrieval mission. It almost ripped off my ear this time. Sakura screeched. The team had successfully returned the demon cat to its owner, albeit not unscathed. Sakura, being assigned the team leader, was left helpless upon cornering the feline monstrosity. As such, she suffered numerous scratches and a maimed ear. Nothing a quick trip to the hospital couldn't fix, but she had too much pride to go to the hospital for treatment of her injuries suffered from the cat. The ridicule one received for getting wounds from Tora medically treated was severe. Tora was somewhat of an unspoken genin initiation mission, one that every genin suffered through at least once. I'm impressed it took your team this long to snap Kakashi, but so be it. I think this C-rank mission will do nicely. An escort to the Land of Waves, and bodyguard duty during the bridge construction. Sound good? Hiruzen asked, received nods from the team. Hiruzen handed Kakashi the scroll and bid them farewell. Alright team, meet at the gates at 0800. Pack for 2 weeks of travel. We can resupply in the village once we arrive. We will be gone for at least a couple months, but depending on the construction progress during the winter storms, it could be up to 6 months. Everyone clear on the details? Kakashi asked. Aye, see you tomorrow at 0800 Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Both Sasuke and Sakura nodded to their sensei before walking away to prepare for the mission. Naruto appeared at Training Ground 8, and found a stump to lay back on, before promptly falling into a light sleep while he waited for Team 8 to finish training. Kurenai glanced over at him and smiled. Does he have something to tell me, or is here for Hinata again? Probably the later. I guess I can end training a bit early. Hinata has been working hard lately, she thought before whistling, getting her team's attention. What's up sensei, something else for us to work on? Kiba questioned. He was sweating from his 3-way sparring with Shino and Hinata, but had been thoroughly enjoying the workout. I think we are going to call it a day. Good work everyone, and I'll meet you all at the Hokage's office tomorrow morning at 0900 for another mission. Kurenai replied, glancing at Hinata and then over to the sleeping form of a certain redhead a ways off to the side of the field. Hinata blushed and nodded, which wasn't missed by Kiba. I know I have no chance by no Hinata, but is that guy really who you want to spend your time with? He could hurt you. He's dangerous, Kiba reasoned. He wasn't ready for the intimidating glare she rounded on him. Akumaru let out a yelp and hid in Kiba's jacket as she continued her glare. Naruto-kun is nothing but a gentleman with me. I trust him entirely, and we have known each other for years. He makes me happy and I will continue to spend my time with him. Is that a problem, Ki-ba-kun? Hinata dragged his name out while smiling all too sweetly, causing the boy to sweat. Shit, guess I should know by now to tread carefully when it concerns the Uzumaki boy. I apologize, Hinata. I guess I don't know him like you do, Kiba replied before walking off, probably back to his compound. When did she get so scary? I see you're putting a womanly spin on the intimidation techniques Naruto has been teaching you, Hinata, Kurenai commented with a smile. Kurenai got up and walked over to the sleeping Naruto. She winked at Hinata before leaning down next to his ear and lightly blowing on it. Naruto jolted upright, a kunai prepped in his right hand and an incapacitation fuinjutsu prepped in his left. Well, I didn't know you were into things like that, Naruto. I'm sure if you just ask Hinata she would comply, Kurenai replied with a wink. Hinata stammered profusely, her face turning the color of his hair. Naruto responded with an appropriate amount of stammering himself. Somehow Kurenai always managed to catch him off guard with these underhanded tactics. Now, who are you looking for? Myself or Hinata? She questioned. As she caught his glance over to Hinata she took her K, smiled and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Hey Naruto-kun, did you have something you wanted to talk about? Hinata asked, failing to completely quell her stuttering due to Kurenai's antics. Hinata had made significant progress in her confidence since she started spending time with Kurenai and Naruto. Something about being around Naruto, and the silent support she received from Kurenai, helped her confidence greatly. After being practically disowned by her father, who now spent all his time on her younger sister Hanabi, Hinata had been very secluded and reserved. Kurenai took it upon herself to take her under her wing. She felt a sense of responsibility for the girl, having been the student of her late mother. Kurenai would swing by the academy and drag Hinata along to Naruto's place to take part in their training, or simply to hang out. She felt safe in the presence of the self-exiled redhead. His aura was warm and inviting, a foreign feeling in the Hyuga compound. Oh yeah, my team got assigned a C-rank mission and we leave tomorrow. We could be gone for a few months, so I wanted to cook for you tonight before I leave. If it's okay with you? He asked, crossing his fingers behind his back. Why am I nervous asking her this? It isn't like I haven't cooked for her before. We've done this hundreds of times. Naruto was forced out of his thoughts when he heard a soft voice. Oh, of course I will join you tonight, Naruto-kun. Let's head into the village to get some ingredients before we head outside the wall. And since you're leaving, I am going to cook for you tonight. No buts, she insisted with a smile as she almost skipped towards the village. A soft smile graced his face as he stuffed his hands in his pockets and turned to follow after her. As they walked through the village, Naruto listened to Hinata cheerfully talk about her last few missions with a content smile on his face. She would stop at a stall here and there, picking up fresh produce or spices here and there while she continued her one-sided conversation. The pair received many confused, surprised and dirty looks from the villagers. Many refused to sell to the Kyuubi, but they couldn't really refuse service to the most powerful clan in the village. Many had never seen the Hyuga heir so bubbly, and could only stare dumbfounded at the duo casually strolling through the village as Hinata was rambling on while handing Naruto random things from the stalls for him to carry. Even more surprising was the smile on the Uzumaki's face. Many villagers didn't believe he could do anything but scowl or smirk, and most believed he didn't deserve to have anything but a sad expression on his face. Slowly the pair made their way out of the village and towards Naruto's dwelling. Hinata walked right through the large stone that was an illusion to hide the entrance to the cave with Naruto in tow. She quickly set to preparing the meal, as Naruto lit the fire and went to fetch some water for the pot, whistling quietly as he did so. When he returned he tried to help with the meal prep, but his hand was promptly smacked away by the lavender-eyed girl. "No, you sit down and wait patiently. I said I would cook and I intend to. You have a mission tomorrow and you need your rest," she stated with a hand on her hip, her other waving a finger in his face. "But it isn't fair to let you do the cooking in my own cave," he retorted. "I don't care, just let me do something for you, Naruto-kun. It's so rare that I can do anything for you, so please let me do this, okay?" she asked, her eyes almost pleading for him to give in. "Hinata, you know that isn't true. I still haven't repaid you for what you did for me. You should never have to do anything for me again," he spoke quietly, looking down at the ground with a hurt expression on his face. She looked at him with a mixture of sadness and something he couldn't make out, before quickly stepping forward and hugging him. As she did so, he fell to his knees, and she pushed his head into her stomach to comfort him. "I would do it again in a heartbeat. I will bring you back every time I have to, Naruto-kun. You know that," she whispered softly, running her hand through his red locks as she thought back to that unfortunate night. Flashback. Hinata had just gotten out of the academy for the day and decided she would surprise Naruto and Kurenai. She utilized all of her training so far from her 3 years in the academy and dropped her clan tail before sneaking out of He village to her favorite little clearing. When she arrived, she found Kurenai and Naruto sparring, with a dog-masked Anbu sitting off to the side of the clearing. Lately they had been testing Naruto's ability with his Kyuubi chakra, under order of the Hokage, to find out how much control he had of it. Naruto had been able to utilize a bit of it, but not manifest a cloak yet. She currently gazed at a Naruto on all fours, with his eyes red instead of blue and slitted like his dojutsu. His hair was slightly longer and wilder, almost appearing like a beast's mane. His nails were elongated and sharpened. As the Anbu watched, Kurenai prompted Naruto to bring out more chakra, in order to try and create a chakra cloak. Hinata looked on, as nothing seemed to be happening. Suddenly the Anbu jumped into a ready stance, and then she felt it. An ominous presence descended upon the clearing, malicious and suffocating. A dark red cloud started to surround Naruto, and his eyes seemed to glow red. He snarled viciously at Kurenai, and they could tell his control was slipping. As Dog looked at Kurenai, she shook her head, telling the Anbu that she had the situation under control. Nobody in the clearing was ready for what happened next. Naruto's eyes changed from the feral red of the Kyuubi to his dojutsu. The Tomo spun, launching a severe genjutsu at Kurenai, and affecting his surroundings as well. Kurenai screamed out in horror and pain, as did the Anbu. Hinata was stricken still with fear at what she saw. The illusion had manifested a swarm of crows. The swarm was assaulting both Kurenai and the Anbu, tearing chunks of flesh from their bodies before rising up and diving again. Hinata could hear the screams of the two victims, and she steeled her resolve. Making a quick hand sign, she flared her chakra and shouted, "Release." Just as soon as the crows had appeared, they disappeared. Naruto's genjutsu illusions were incredibly hard to break. They not only required the victims to notice that they were under a genjutsu, but in order to break them you had to expend chakra to do so. It was agreed upon by the Hokage and Kurenai that this was a side effect of Naruto's mysterious dojutsu. Hinata thanked Kami above that Naruto wasn't focused on the illusion, making it less costly for her to dispel. Her relief soon disappeared as the next layer of the illusion manifested itself. All three found themselves tied up to a stake. Kurenai and the Anbu were still in shock from the vicious assault of the crows from the first illusion, and seemed unresponsive. Hinata flared her chakra again and shouted, "Release." The stake disappeared, but upon taking in her surroundings while preparing for a third illusion, Hinata found that the Anbu and Kurenai were still tied to the posts. It was then that Hinata noticed the new form Hinata had taken. He had tail of pure chakra spread out behind him, and the chakra cloak was taking on a darker red tinge, almost the color of blood. He snarled and pulled out a kunai. Sinking low on his hind legs, he sprung forward, aiming to plunge the kunai into Kurenai's chest. As the sound of metal cutting into flesh was heard, two screams and a gasp filled the air. The dog Anbu gasped at the sight, Kurenai screamed in horror, and Hinata cried out in pain. As Naruto looked down in front of him, his cloak started to fade, and his feral appearance started to recede, being replaced by a mortified expression. Naruto looked at his left hand. It was wrapped around the handle of a kunai, whose blade was dug deep into Hinata's right shoulder, under her collarbone. With a gasp he slowly stepped back, the genjutsu dispelling, dropping the two remaining victims to the ground. No, 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 no. No, Naruto screamed. He dropped to his knees in front of his only friend. Why did you do that? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Hinata. I didn't. He started sobbing openly in front of Hinata, mumbling gibberish in his attempt to express his horrified thoughts. I stabbed Hinata. I couldn't control myself. I hurt her. I promised I wouldn't, but I did. Naruto was pulled from his self-admonishment when he felt a soft fabric press against his face, and a hand wrap around his neck, pulling him into the embrace. This aura, it's so warm and soft. It feels like Hinata, but why? She should hate me, what's going on? As Naruto risked a glance upwards, he felt a hand run through his hair. That feels nice. His eyes locked onto Hinata's gaze and he froze. His bottom lip quivered more as we waited for her verbal lashing, but all he found was tenderness and forgiveness in her gaze. Why? He forced out in a choked sob. SSSSHHH, it's okay Naruto-kun, you're back now. Everything is alright. Hinata cooed as she continued to hold his head against her stomach and run her hand through his hair. No, I hurt you. Why don't you hate me? I'm a monster. Naruto pulled himself from her embrace and slouched further. Fresh tears fell from his eyes as he clenched his fists, pulling up some grass. Hinata grasped the kunai in her shoulder and grunted as she pulled out and tossed it to the side. Kneeling in front of Naruto, she cupped his face with her hands, forcing him to hold her stare. I'm fine, Naruto-kun. You didn't hurt me. That wasn't you. You're back now and it's okay. I forgive you. It wasn't your fault, but I forgive you anyways. She spoke with the softness a mother would speak to her child with. Slowly she wrapped her arms around him again, and was relieved when he clutched onto her back and buried his head in her neck, sobbing some more. Kurenai slowly got up of the ground as Hinata calmed down Naruto and walked over to the Anbu. She gave a look to the ninja who simply nodded and disappeared, going to the hospital to find a medic. He returned a minute later to find Naruto still clutching onto Hinata. The medic released a gasp upon seeing her charge, but was silenced by a look from Kurenai. Understanding the look she received from the red-eyed woman, the medic approaching Hinata slowly and silently. Placing a comforting hand on her back, she focused her chakra, mending Hinata's wound. When she finished healing it as best as she could from behind, Hinata waved her off, her life not threatened and the bleeding stopped. Nodding, the medic returned to Kurenai and the Anbu. If I can't get a better angle at the wound it will scar. She isn't bleeding anymore though. Kurenai nodded and waved the medic off, who disappeared in a swirl of leaves. She gave one look at the Anbu who nodded and disappeared as well, on his way to the Hokage's office. Kurenai sighed and backed up against a tree, sliding down it to rest. It would be a long night tonight. It took another hour before Naruto had cried himself to sleep in the comfort of Hinata's arms. Hinata herself had fallen asleep, the stress of the situation draining her. Kurenai smiled at the couple before picking them up and taking them into Naruto's cave and putting them down on the bed to rest a while longer. I should probably inform Hyuga-sama that I will be training his daughter tonight for nighttime reconnaissance to ease his suspicions, she reasoned to herself before setting out for the Hyuga compound, nodding at the Hokage and the dog mask Anbu as they arrived to relieve her of her watch. Flashback end. As Hinata ran her hands through his hair, Naruto looked up at her with a questioning look. How can you forgive me so easily? I hurt you so badly. It left a scar. I can't be forgiven for almost killing you. In control or not, it is unforgivable. Hinata pulled back and did something she didn't think she would ever do before. She slapped him, hard. Naruto slowly brought his hand up to touch his red cheek, a shocked look across his face. Hinata kneeled down in front of Naruto and pulled her shirt to the side to reveal a scar below her right collarbone. I will decide what is or isn't forgivable. You can't get rid of me as easily as something like this, Naruto-kun. I bear this scar with pride. I was able to help you, and this is a small price to pay for your sanity. I said it before and I will say it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I will bring you back each and every time I need to. I will not lose you to the burden you carry for this village, she stated with conviction. The fierceness of her gaze kept Naruto locked on her lavender orbs. Emboldened by her recent outburst, she cupped his cheek opposite the bright red mark, leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on the mark. Now sit down by the fire, shut up and let me cook for you, understood? Hinata said, standing up and placing her hands on her hips. Still fixed under the fierce look she had, Naruto simply nodded and moved to sit by the fire. As she returned to preparing their meal, she said one last remark over her shoulder to try and pull him out of his funk. You know, you might be the most stubborn person I know. She commented with a smirk on her face. Naruto simply glanced up at her and slowly she watched the smirk she loved so much grace his face again. That is what I want to see, my little nightmare, Hinata said, using Kurenai's pet name for him. Satisfied with the playful pout she got, she returned to her cooking with a blissful smile on her face. The rest of the evening went by as usual. Hinata and Naruto traded small talk about their missions, shared in the horror of reminiscing about Tora, and simply enjoyed each other's company. The little cave never felt more like a home than it did tonight. As Hinata was leaving for the night, she stopped at the entrance and tugged on Naruto's wrist, pulling him closer. She fixed her gaze on him once more and spoke in a soft but demanding tone. You better come back to me from this mission, you hear? You owe me a cinnamon bun when you get back. Naruto looked at her with slight confusion in his eyes. When did this happen? I don't remember losing a bet. I decided that I want you to take me out and buy me a cinnamon bun when you get back. It is the least you can do after leaving for so long, she replied, a playful smirk crossing her face. Before letting him reply, she reaching up on her toes and planted a chaste kiss on his cheek, before turning on her heels and walking away. Just before she would pass into the forest and out of sight of the cave, she stopped and looked back. Locking eyes with the redhead leaning against the cave wall, she smiled softly at him one last time and mouthed a, "Sweet dreams," before making her way back to the village. As Tazuna approached the gate with his protection detail's leader, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Reaching the gate, his nerves seemed to be confirmed upon seeing 3 kids still wet behind their ears waiting on him. First was a pink-haired girl in a short red kimono. She seemed to fawn over one of her teammates constantly. That doesn't seem promising. A fangirl instead of a ninja, just my luck, the old drunk thought. Taking a swig of his sake bottle, he glanced at the second member. He had black spiky hair and a constant scowl fixed to his face. He was wearing a blue shirt and white shorts. Doesn't seem like anything special. Certainly seems to brood a lot. Hope he can focus when the time comes. Despite the old bridge builder's outward appearance and constant drinking, he fancied himself to be rather insightful, even when on the bottle. This third member seems interesting at least, Tazuna thought as he scanned the third and final member of the team. He had wild dark red hair swept back and held with his headband. His outfit was a typical Anbu outfit, black sleeveless undershirt with a gray combat vest over top, black pants and black sandals. He wore gray bracers on his forearms and had the Anbu tattoo on his left shoulder. The boy was leaning against the gate with his eyes closed and a smirk fixed on his face. I'm assuming that this kid is ex-Anbu judging by his getup and tattoo. At least one of these genin has wiped the milk off their lips. Let's make haste, That bridge ain't gonna build itself, Tazuna spoke before making his way out of the village. Hey, what do you Maya? Sakura screeched before a hand on her shoulder stopped her. Looking over she seen Naruto holding her from continuing her rampage. Don't yell at the client, he can think what he wants. Prove him wrong with performing your mission, ya? Naruto spoke before stuffing his hands in his pockets, closing his eyes and following behind Tazuna. Sparing a glance over his shoulder at his teammates he called out, Oi, you two coming or not? Sasuke and Sakura jolted and hurried to catch up to Kakashi, Tazuna and Naruto. This was going to be a long mission with the company of Naruto and Kakashi. Team 7 had been traveling for 2 days in relative silence. Whenever Sakura would try and break the silence by cuddling up to Sasuke, he would grunt and move away, seemingly content with the way things had been going. Man, why did I get stuck with 3 silent people for my team? I haven't had a decent conversation in days, Sakura lamented. Suddenly she felt the atmosphere shift slightly, and noticed Naruto was walking slightly more alert than he had been for the previous part of their journey. Wondering what was going on she glanced at Kakashi and Sasuke, finding Sasuke still the same as ever, and Kakashi still with his nose stuffed into his orange book. Wonder what is on Naruto's mind, she pondered. Just as she finished her thought 2 people jumped from a puddle and wrapped Kakashi in a bladed chain, shredding him to pieces. Sakura screamed in fright as Sasuke jumped in front of Tazuna. Glancing over at Naruto, she noticed his eyes open and his dojutsu active. Time seemed to slow down as Sakura looked back at her two attackers. What she witnessed next shocked her. One of the demon brothers stood frozen as the other raised his chain arm up. With a flick of his wrist, the chain wrapped around his brother. "Ha! Gotcha now, filthy genin!" he yelled, and with a powerful yank of his arm, he shredded his brother to pieces. "Huh? Brother? What happened?" As the remaining demon brother turned to look at the gathering of ninja, Naruto dashed forward with his hand pulled back and a seal matrix swirling around his fingers. Naruto appeared in front of the missing nin's face and locked eyes. As his tomo swirled, he shoved his hand forward, applying the sealing matrix to his torso. Sakura watched, mouth open and surprisingly at a loss for words as Naruto turned around, deactivating his dojutsu. She spared a glance back at the remaining enemy and watched as the sealing matrix applied to his chest spread across his body, immobilizing him and knocking him out. "Oi, everyone alright?" Naruto asked, bringing Sakura out of her stupor. Well, good job my cute little genin. Excellent reaction time, Naruto. Now Tazuna, I think we need to have a little chat. Those are two A-rank missing nin from Kiri. Why would they be targeting you?" Kakashi asked as he turned to a profusely sweating Tazuna. "I'll be taking my team back to Konoha. You may accompany us if you wish and have the mission parameters changed appropriately." "Wait, you don't understand the situation. I'll tell you everything, just listen please," Tazuna pleaded, earning a nod from Kakashi before he spilled the beans. "I see. That is indeed a dire situation. However, the fact still remains that we were hired for a C-rank escort mission, and this is at least an A-rank mission considering the political repercussions of failure. I will leave it up to my team to decide if we head back to Konoha or continue the mission," Kakashi spoke as he glanced at his team. "I think we should help. We can't abandon the citizens being encroached on my gato," Sakura said, with a hint of a waver in her voice. "I don't care either way, but I see the merit in completing the mission. It would be good for the village," Sasuke chimed in. I think completing this mission would be in the best interests of our village as well," Naruto spoke, making the decision unanimous. "Very well, you can thank my team for having the compassion I lack, Tazuna. But understand, from here on out, we play by my rules," Kakashi threatened. Tazuna simply nodded and gulped, before taking a nervous swig of his sake. Naruto up front, eyes open. Sakura to the right, Sasuke the left. "I'll take the rear. We move silently and swiftly until we reach our destination. Seal the demon brothers and let's go," Kakashi barked. "Shadow clone jutsu," Naruto said, as 4 clones appeared. "You guys spread out and scout ahead in a fan formation. Anything suspicious and you dispel, got it?" With nods, the group was off, followed by the diamond formation of Team 7. The trip to Nami no Kuni was uneventful. The team performed their roles silently and efficiently. As the team was passing by a lake on the last stretch to Tazuna's home, a thick mist started to roll in. Stopping and growing alert, Kakashi took charge. "All 3 of you surround Tazuna. I believe Zabuza is going to make his move very shortly." An ominous voice rang out from seemingly all directions. "How acute of you, Kakashi of the Sharingan, but do you think you can really defend your team and my target? Leave the bridge builder and turn back if you want to keep your lives." The voice spoke as a large amount of killing intent was leaked on the group. Sakura dropped to her knees as Sasuke grunted and pulled out a kunai. Naruto crouched, activated his eyes and prepped 2 incapacitation fuinjutsus at his fingertips. "My eyes won't work in this mist unless he gets into striking range. I'll have to act quickly," Naruto thought as he tried to utilize all of his senses to anticipate the impending strike. Kakashi lifted his headband off of his eye, revealing his Sharingan. He pulled a kunai out and got into a defensive stance. "Where should I strike? So many options to choose from," the voice spoke. "How about here?" Zabuza shouted as a giant sword came into view above Naruto. Naruto leapt backwards as he changed to his explosion fuinjutsu. As the sword came down, it grazed down Naruto's left eye, face and down to the middle of his chest. As the sword cleaved into his flesh, Naruto shut his eye, grunted and slammed his hands onto the blade of the sword. The seals appeared and showed the number 3 in the circle. Naruto dropped to one knee and covered his left eye. "Damn, I couldn't make eye contact. It is too risky to leave an opening like that again with this dangerous of an opponent. I was careless. Sakura gasped at the amount of blood falling from Naruto. Are we all going to die here? She steeled her resolve upon hearing Kakashi whisper to them, "Thanks Naruto, that was all I needed." Suddenly a large explosion went off to the group's left, about 20 meters away. The force of the blast blew the mist away, and Kakashi pounced. Weaving hand signs as he ran towards his target, he jumped as he heard a shout of, "Fire style, great fireball jutsu." The giant ball of fire passed underneath Kakashi as he finished his last hand sign. Watching the fireball hit Zabuza, Kakashi released his ninjutsu. Lightning style, lightning fang, firing it to the right of Sasuke's fireball. As the water clone Sasuke had hit dispelled, Kakashi's ninjutsu struck true. Zabuza grunted in pain. "We're not done yet Zabuza," Naruto spoke, dashing towards his temporarily stunned target. The lightning coursing through Zabuza's body prevented him from moving as Naruto slammed both of his hands into his chest. As the matrix incapacitated Zabuza, two senbon struck his neck, causing him to fall limp. "Thank you for neutralizing my target, I've been on his trail for weeks now," a voice spoke, emerging from the trees. Team 7 watched as a Kiri hunter nin walked out and examined the body. "Again, thank you for your services," the hunter nin spoke before disappearing in a splash with the body. "Kakashi, that wasn't protocol. I think we'll be seeing them again soon," Naruto commented grimly. After seeing the nod from Kakashi, Naruto keeled over, unconscious from his blood loss. "Sakura, pick up your teammate. Is your place close to Zuna?" Kakashi asked. "Yes it is, follow me, it's just up ahead," the builder replied before leading them away from the lake. It only took another 45 minutes for the group to reach their destination. "Tsunami, we have guests. I need you to get me the medkit and some spare bedding." Tazuna spoke as he entered his home. "What do yo oh my, I'll be right back. Lay him down upstairs please," she ordered as she hustled to retrieve the medkit. Sakura nodded and continued up the stairs. By now she was soaked in her teammate's blood. Laying him down and moving away from the bed, Tsunami entered the room. "Go clean yourself up, I can patch him up," the older woman said as she knelt beside her new charge. When Sakura didn't move, Tsunami turned around and fixed her gaze on the girl. "I said go get cleaned up, he will not die, his pulse is strong, oddly enough, now go. You look like a walking morgue." Sakura looked down, and nodded once more before leaving the room. After a couple hours, Tsunami returned downstairs to see the grim looks on her visitors' faces. "He'll be fine, just needs to rest. How he is still alive and his pulse was so strong after losing as much blood as Sakura had on her is beyond me though. You ninja are something else," she said, addressing the apprehensive looks as she moved to retrieve a cup of coffee. "So, care to introduce me to our visitors? Ah yes, this is Team 7 from Konoha. They are the ninja who have saved my life twice already. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke. Naruto is the boy upstairs. They will be staying here until the bridge is done." Tazuna motioned to the corresponding people as he introduced them. "I see, you have my thanks for saving my grandfather's life twice. If you need anything don't hesitate to ask. I know a decent amount of first aid, since the town doctors have been removed by Gato's thugs I had no choice but to learn for my family," Tsunami smiled. With a bow she turned to the fridge. "Now allow me to make you all dinner, I'm sure you're hungry after your journey." The morning after reaching Tazuna's house, Kakashi set out a routine. Each day Sakura and Sasuke would swap between guarding the bridge and Tazuna, or training with Kakashi. This routine continued for the next week while Naruto slept. "Hey Kakashi-sensei, why hasn't Naruto woken up yet?" Tsunami said it would only take a day or two. "Was he like this with recovery in Anbu?" Sakura asked while sitting down for a lunch break. "No, this is unlike him, in Anbu his recovery speeds were unmatched, I don't know what is going on. All we can do is wait. He is stable so he might have some internal issues hindering him." Kakashi cryptically explained. "He is probably dealing with the Kyuubi, but I can't let Sakura know that." Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up laying back against a tree on the edge of a field. Groggily wiping his eyes of the residue left from his extended sleep, he slowly rose and took in his surroundings. A breeze was blowing, however the normally blue sky was replaced with gray swirling clouds. The air was thick with latent energy, and Naruto knew a storm was coming. With a sigh he stretched lazily before sauntering over to the large pit in the middle of the field. I thought you didn't like it when it rained, Kyuubi? Why are you keeping me in here long enough to cause a storm? Naruto questioned, staring down into the pit. The massive fox stared back at him with one glowing red eye silently. With another sigh, Naruto climbed out onto the middle of the cage and sat down, dangling his legs into the cage with the sealed tag right in front of him. You know, you still haven't told me your name. Why not? It must get lonely in here. The large fox closed his eye and let out a puff of air from his mouth, still refusing to acknowledge the presence of his jailer. Well, since I am stuck here, and it doesn't look like you will let me return anytime soon, I might as well entertain you with a story. When I was younger, Naruto started to ramble on. He waved his arms in the air throughout his story, attempting to add some flair to it. His signature smirk crossed his face when he caught the fox stand up. Pausing his story, he looked down through the bars, seeing his feet mere inches away from the Kyuubi's nose. Why do you insist on aggravating me with that same damn story every time you are here? All you do is go to Ichiraku's and spill ramen on Ayame. For the love of Kami, it is a boring ass story. Stop telling it, the fox growled out. To further show his disdain for the mundane story he has heard at least 10 times, he plastered a feral snarl onto his face. To the fox's surprise, the boy smiled. Not one of his patented smirks, but a genuine smile. I didn't think you listened to my stories, I'm glad you care so much. Now it's your turn, tell me a story, the boy requested. I am not a scribe or a bard. I will do no such thing. Leave me be. What is your name? If you won't tell me a story, at least tell me your name. What good would my name do you? What use does a jailer have for the name of his prisoner? I always like to know the names of my friends. I have so few, and you've been with me the longest. Why wouldn't I want to know your name? A look of shock crossed the fox's face. Friend? I've never been considered a friend before? And why would this boy consider me of all things a friend? As the fox dwelled on the mixture of feelings so foreign to him, he didn't notice the boy picking at the sealed tag on his cage. It didn't escape Naruto's notice that the looming storm clouds had started to disperse, allowing several pillars of light to grace the clearing. With a smirk on his face, he continued picking at the seal, waiting on his answer. Kurama. Nice to meet you, Kurama. I am Naruto Uzumaki, he replied. His smirk turned into a smile as he yanked on the tag, letting it fall into the pit and onto Kurama's nose. Call it a gut feeling, but I think things will go much smoother like this. As Kurama turned his shocked expression up towards the boy, Naruto started to fade away. I'm trusting you. Don't make me regret it. Hinata forgave me, so don't give her a reason to take that back, and without a sound, Naruto faded from his mindscape. Very well, Naruto, Kurama thought to himself as he settled back into his pit and fell asleep. Tazuna's home. As Naruto stirred himself awake, he found his sight was off. Confused by the weird sensation, he opened his right eye. Yep, that one works as intended. Closing his right eye and opening his left eye, he found nothing but darkness. That is odd. Bringing a hand to his left eye, he felt bandages. Tugging on them slightly, his vision showed cracks of light. Phew, didn't want to be blind in one eye. That would have all sorts of problems. I'd end up looking like Kakashi-sensei. With a shudder, Naruto ascended to a sitting position. Unraveling his bandages on his face so he could see, he took in his surroundings. He was currently in a foreign room on a bed. Looking out the window, he could see the sea, which confused him. I don't remember being by a sea. The last thing I remember is Zabuza. Shit. Slowly standing up, he found himself dressed only in a pair of gray sweatpants. Hope I didn't get taken advantage of while I was out. Oh well. Naruto shrugged. The less he knew about something like that happening, the better. Slowly making his way out of the room and down the stairs, he found the house to be vacant. With a sigh, he walked outside and down to the water's edge. He rolled up the legs of his pants and waded into the water up to just below his knees. After finding his gaze lost on the foggy horizon for an unknown amount of time, he risked a glance down at the surface. Staring back up at him was a messy mop of red hair that fell down to his shoulders, and blue eyes. What took him by surprise was the long rough scar that started at his left eye and traveled down to his neck where it ran into some more bandages. Taking the bandages from his torso, he followed the scar down to his upper left pectoral. I see, this is the result of a demon sword. I guess I can't heal perfectly from everything. I'll have to be careful when I face him again. Accepting his new features, Naruto shrugged and turned to make his way back to the house. Settling himself in the hammock on the front porch, he sighed one last time and closed his eyes. A little nap can't hurt, can it? Kakashi and Sakura appeared at the bridge to find Sasuke working on his chakra control exercise of making a leaf spin on his forehead. He and Sakura had managed to learn to make it stick on their forehead, which turned into them getting the hang of tree walking. The next step was water walking, but his control wasn't good enough yet. Kakashi had assigned him the leaf spinning on his forehead exercise to help him practice control while it was his day to guard Tazuna. I think that's enough to call it a day, don't you agree, Tazuna? Kakashi spoke from behind his book. And good job, Sasuke, you're pretty close to getting it to spin. I'm sure by the end of tomorrow you'll be walking on shallow water. Receiving a nod from Tazuna and a grunt from Sasuke, Kakashi took it as a K for them to head back to Tazuna's for the night. At the end of their short walk back, all four were in for a surprise at the sight on the front porch. Sitting in a chair smiling and knitting was Tsunami. Beside her was a familiar body lounging in a hammock. He had his hands behind his head casually, his eyes closed and his ever-present smirk gracing his lips. Kakashi's eyes smiled as Sakura and Sasuke quickened their pace slightly to greet their teammate. Sasuke arrived first and walked over to the boy. Gave us quite the scare for a bit there. You were stable and seemed healthy but weren't waking up. Yeah, I figured you guys could use a head start in training while we wait on the bridge to be built, came the reed head's snarky reply. Sasuke scoffed to mask his chuckle. With a wave he turned to go inside. As Sakura walked up she gasped. Naruto noticed her eyes lingering on the new scar he was sporting and waved her off. It's nothing. My fault really for leaving an opening as bait. I should leave that part out when I tell Kurenai sensei and Hinata-chan though. Naruto trailed off, a cold shiver running through his body. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that part out. Well, it's about time you decided to wake up and quit being a lazy ass. You're on guard shift tomorrow now, Sakura retorted before following Sasuke inside. Tsunami frowned at the conversation. I'm sorry, I could stitch you up better so the scar wasn't there. She spoke more under her breath than anything. Don't worry about it. I doubt even the most experienced doctors could stop this from scarring. A demon sword has certain effects to its wounds. Naruto replied. You did a great job, as I am still breathing. Thank you, really. Tsunami simply nodded and went back to her menial task. As Kakashi walked up he shared a knowing look with Naruto. The boy just nodded in reply lightly, giving Kakashi all the answers he needed. 2 months passed without incident. Team 7 integrated Naruto into the rotation, and manipulated it a bit to allow Sasuke and Sakura to get more training in, seeing as Naruto did not gain as much from Kakashi as they did. Currently Naruto is on guard duty, while Sasuke is training on his own and Sakura is working with Kakashi. Tazuna estimated another month to complete the bridge, which would put them at another 5 weeks to get back to Konoha if no unforeseen circumstances arose. Eating at the back of Naruto's and Kakashi's minds however was the hunter nin that took Zabuza away. A gut feeling told the ex-Anbu pair that they would be seeing Zabuza and the hunter nin again before they left Nami no Kuni. As Sasuke was taking a break from his ninjutsu practice, he spotted a snake make its way out of the bushes. That is odd, I haven't seen a snake the whole time I have been in Nami no Kuni. Is it a trap? Growing weary of the snake, Sasuke continued his lunch, but kept the snake in the corner of his eye. He was thoroughly caught off guard when the snake started to shift into the form of a man. Hello Sasuke-kun, you made it quite hard to find you, a slimy voice almost hissed at him. Jumping up and pulling a kunai out, Sasuke took a defensive stance before replying, who are you? And how do you know who I am? As he waited for an answer he surveyed the man in front of him. He had long straight black hair and a very white complexion. His eyes were accented by purple paint that ended near the end of his nose. He was dressed in an odd tan shirt that had the front and back extended down to his knees. By far the most peculiar thing about his appearance was the thick purple rope he used as a belt, which was tied in a very large bow at his back. Who I am isn't important right now, but what is important is that I can offer you power. A kind of power you won't find in Konoha. A kind of power that will allow you to avenge your clan. Sasuke replied with silence. earning a smirk from the odd snake man. I see I have your attention. All I require from you right now is to accept my gift. When the time comes, you will be called upon to leave your village. The gift I will give you will guide you to me. Do you accept? Something told Sasuke that even if he refused, he would receive this gift anyways. Nodding slightly, he was shocked to see the man's neck elongate towards him at alarming speeds. Before Sasuke could react, the man had bitten him on his left shoulder, leaving a large sealing matrix, which almost immediately shrunk down to 3 tomo. Now if you survive tonight, you will be called upon soon. When that time comes, seek me out. The mark will guide you, the man said, before he slipped away into the trees. Sasuke didn't even pay attention to him leaving. The pain he was in was consuming all of his attention. He lay writhing on the ground in agony, the pain too much to allow him to even scream. The minutes ticked by agonizingly slow. Eventually the minutes turned to hours, and daylight turned into darkness. As the sun rose the next day, Sasuke felt the cooling sensation of relief spread across his body. He survived the first trial on his way to vengeance. Returning to the house in the morning, Sasuke received some worried looks from his team. I got caught up in my training and ended up passing out from exhaustion. Sorry, he replied with a wave, making his way upstairs for some much-needed rest. The rest of the room just shrugged. The boy had been pushing himself pretty hard the past couple months. He was striving to catch up to Naruto, and that was no easy feat. The last month of construction passed by quickly. As the bridge neared completion, Kakashi and Naruto found themselves growing more and more anxious. Zabuza had yet to make his move, and it was looking more and more like it was going to be a showdown on the final day of construction. As the final few days neared, Kakashi insisted everyone be present for guard duty each day. They needed to be at their best for when Zabuza and his accomplice showed. On the last day of construction, during the group's walk across the bridge to the end, Kakashi's suspicions were confirmed as a thick heavy mist rolled in. The ominous feeling lingering in the air was all too familiar for the group. Sakura, stay with Tazuna. Naruto and Sasuke, I want both of you to handle the accomplice. I will deal with Zabuza, Kakashi ordered, lifting his headband at the same time. Sakura nodded and took her position in front of Tazuna. Naruto activated his eyes and prepped his Fuinjutsu while Sasuke readied a kunai. Remember team, we are to protect Tazuna, that is the mission. Do not get separated. This mist will easily disorientate you, Kakashi advised. You know how to keep your wits about you in my mist, Kakashi. Sound advice indeed. Too bad it won't save your precious little genin from my protege. He will dismantle them. A familiar voice echoed from every direction at once. Hiku, kill them all. I will handle the Jonin. A blade materialized out of thin air as Kakashi raised his kunai to block. Naruto and Sasuke narrowed their eyes and strained their senses, waiting for their opponent. A mask materialized from the mist in between Naruto and Sasuke, the figure slashing at both of them with senbon. Sasuke blocked while Naruto ducked and shoved his hand forward towards his assailant's leg. Hiku lifted his leg and kicked it towards Sasuke, hitting him in the stomach and pushing him back. You know, I didn't expect all of you to be on the bridge. I can't imagine Gato to be honorable enough to leave the builder's family alone, Zabuza taunted. Sharing a look, Sasuke dove into combat with Hiku as Naruto disengaged. With a quick hand sign, Naruto shouted, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 clones appeared in front of him. 2 of you protect Tazuna, the other 3 get to the house now. Aye sir, they echoed before dashing away. Refocusing on his opponent, Naruto watched as Sasuke struggled against Hiku. The kid was good, very good. He prepped his Fuinjutsu before dashing back into the fray. He couldn't cast Genjutsu effectively in the mist, so that left him with his Uzumaki inheritance. Welcome back, unfortunately you have returned at an inopportune time, for this is taking too long. I will end this now. Ice style. Demonic mirroring ice crystals. Hiku shouted. With the end of his jutsu, a plethora of ice mirrors materialized from the mist and encased both Sasuke and Naruto in the dome. Hiku entered the mirrors and was reflected upon each mirror in the dome. No one can escape my ultimate technique. I apologize, but I must kill you now. I will not fail, Zabuza-sama. Hiku began dashing from mirror to mirror, raining senbon down onto his victims. Sasuke and Naruto did the best they could to defend themselves, but the senbon seemed to come from all directions. Slowly but surely, the boys were becoming pincushions. We can't keep this up forever. Do you have anything in your bag of tricks, Naruto? Sasuke asked. I can think of something, but I need a few minutes. Can you hold on solo for that long? Sasuke nodded and steeled his resolve. He watched as Naruto disappeared in a puff. Huh, shadow clone. Welp, here goes nothing. After the clone disappeared, Sasuke found himself being riddled with even more senbon than before. The absence of his teammate's clone is a shield, leaving more openings. Well, I have to try something. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. Sasuke shouted, aiming his ninjutsu at one of the mirrors. It seemed to waver a bit. Maybe if I continue to hit it. And so Sasuke continued to rain fire down upon the single mirror, hoping it was doing something. If he could break one mirror, he would be okay. Exhausting most of his chakra, Sasuke could see that he wasn't making any headway. As if his realization wasn't enough, a senbon hit him in the pressure point on his shoulder, causing his right arm to go limp. Damn, and all because I'm too weak. I don't even have my Sharingan yet. Pitiful. Sasuke dropped to his knees, unable to muster the strength to block anymore. Looking up, he watched as Haku came halfway out of his mirror. It looks like you have been abandoned. Now you will die. With those words, Haku threw a handful of senbon aimed at Sasuke's neck. As Sasuke watched the needles fly towards him, time seemed to slow. I was abandoned again, just like Itachi. I'm weak, that is why. I don't want to be weak anymore. I need to get stronger. And with those thoughts, his eyes flared. He pumped chakra to his eyes, and they turned blood red, one tomo around the pupil. At the last moment, Sasuke dodged the needles. What, Sharingan? My job just got a lot harder, Haku thought. Merging with his mirrors again, he rained more senbon at the boy. Less seemed to hit him than before, but some still met their mark. It would take longer, but the outcome would be the same. Haku smiled. Victory was still assured. At least that is what he thought until his was frozen halfway out of his mirror. Looking around, he could see his mirrors melting. As he looked towards Sasuke to see if he was the culprit, he was shocked to see Zabuza instead, riddled with senbon. What, Zabuza-sama? I was attacking the Uchiha, not you. He muttered. You failed me, Haku, you disgraced me. Now we will both perish here. Zabuza spit out. Haku shivered at the murderous glare he was receiving from his master. Before Haku could say anything else, a cold, chilling laugh sounded out. It was sinister, and the air filled with a murderous chakra. The density of it was so thick, Haku was struggling to breathe. He panicked and looked around wildly for the source. He couldn't find it, it was coming from everywhere. As Haku glanced back at the mirror he was stuck in, he seen Zabuza's form. You failed. Kill yourself. You have disgraced me enough. At least do me the favor of taking your own life. The mirror spat out in venom. But Zabuza-sama, I didn't mean to attack you. The sound of that sinister and mocking laughter cut Haku off. It was driving him mad. His own master was mocking his weakness. He couldn't get the voices out of his head. Slowly but surely, Haku brought a needle up to his neck. I am sorry, Zabuza-sama. Allow me to repent for my failures. As he finished his last sentence, the boy drove his needle into his neck, directly into his spinal column. The genjutsu dropped, and revealed an immobilized but otherwise fine Sasuke, kneeled beside Naruto, who was shrouded in Kurama's chakra, with two tails swinging back and forth behind him. The body of Haku dropped with a thud as the mirrors shattered and dissipated into nothing. At the same time, the mist cleared away, revealing Zabuza pinned by 8 ninkin across from Kakashi, who had a sizable gash on his chest. Well, looks like you failed again, Zabuza. Good thing I decided to bring my army to make sure the job got done. I'm glad I won't have to pay you either, not that I ever planned on it. A small man spoke from the end of the bridge. Gato, I assume? Kakashi asked. Naruto, would you please take care of that trash? I'm a bit drained at the moment. Naruto nodded before turning towards the advancing mob. He flared his chakra and the tomo around his eyes spun. The moment they did, Gato's army put their swords to their necks and slit their throats. The sight was eerie, and as Sakura watched, she couldn't help but lean over the side of the bridge and let loose her stomach's contents. What did you do to my men? Gato screamed. Naruto simply ignored the man and glanced at Kakashi, asking a silent question. Receiving a nod from his sensei, Naruto pulled out a scroll, applied a Fuinjutsu matrix to his hand and placed his hand on the scroll. He walked up to Gato next and shoved his matrix-covered hand into the man's chest, sealing him within the scroll. Returning to his group, Naruto smirked at Tazuna. Well, should we finish this bridge or what? With the capture of Gato and defeat of his army, the town had finally been liberated. Haku died at the hands of Naruto, and Zabuza succumbed to his wounds at the hands of Kakashi. Lacking any more threats, Tazuna insisted on Team 7 staying for a couple more nights in the town to celebrate. The party held in Team 7's honor lasted for the afternoon of the second day and carried over well into the night. Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke are front and center in the local tavern, with many of the town folk surrounding them peppering them with questions or funneling them food and drink. The trio attempted to avoid consuming liquor, recalling their sensei's lecture on the vices of shinobi, but eventually the villagers wore them down. With a bottle of sake in his hands, Naruto smirked at Sakura and Sasuke. Giving them a wink, he substituted with a shadow clone and proceeded to make his way to the outskirts of town. Letting his wandering body take him where it pleased, Naruto delved into his thoughts. This mission sure has been eye-opening. I'm going to have to get stronger in case I come across more swordsmen of the mist or demon swords. They seem to have a larger affect on me than normal people. It must be linked to Kurama. As Naruto continued to ponder, he found himself on the start of the bridge. With a shrug, he sat down and leaned against the side of it. Speaking of Kurama, I wonder if I did the right thing with the seal. I'm sure he would enjoy the space. I know I would hate being locked up in a cage. I guess all I can do is hope it doesn't backfire on me. For the record, I do appreciate your actions with the seal kit. You will get no trouble from me, as long as you can continue to learn to control my power and not lose yourself to my anger. The deep voice of Kurama resonated in Naruto's mind. You can hear my thoughts? Well, that would have been good to know earlier. Always the secretive one, aren't you? Silence. Oh, that's cute. Drop a bombshell like mind reading on me and then go back to your nap. Real mature Kurama. And I'm supposed to be the kid. Naruto thought with an eye roll. Taking a swig of the sake bottle in his hand, Naruto leaned his head back and stared up into the night sky. Letting the alcohol numb his senses, he simply took in the stars, feeling tranquil for the first time in a while. Eager to get home, are you? A feminine voice rang out, pulling Naruto from his almost catatonic state. Ah, sorry, didn't see you there. I'm more anxious than eager. I've got a lot to work on, and I'm sure I'll get an earful for the risks I took during this mission. He trailed off as his left hand ghosted over his cheek. Name's Amy, may I? Gesturing to the spot beside Naruto, he nodded, passing her the bottle as she plopped down next to him. Thanks, I've been coming out here every other night or so since the bridge was started. Something about it gives me hope, ya know? Naruto simply nodded, understanding the plight of the village he was currently in. So, why aren't you eager to get home? You've been gone for months now and I'm sure your family misses you, Amy continued on. Catching his momentary downward glance, she opened her mouth to apologize but was beaten to it. Don't worry, you didn't know. My parents died when I was born. Life of a shinobi, I guess. I came to terms with it long ago, he spoke. He had a slightly far-off look in his eyes as he looked up into the night again. Well, I'm sure you've got people who love and care for you. How couldn't they? You're a fine young man, she replied, handing him the bottle. Taking another swig, he began in a downcast tone. There are certain circumstances, you could say, that I have found myself in due to the details of my birth. They tend to keep most people away from me. There are a select few, though, that seem to tolerate my presence. She scoffed. I see, you don't think they really care for you? I'm sure you'd be surprised. I'll bet they love you unconditionally, these select few you speak of. For the first time since she arrived, Naruto glanced over and really took notice of the person beside him. She had long dark brown hair that framed her slender face and brown eyes. She wore a simple green dress and black sandals. She looked about 17. Average is how he would describe her. Average in every sense of the word. But she is nice. I don't remember the last time I met a nice stranger. Naruto smiled. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they do truly care for me. I'll have to spy on them and find out when I get back, he joked. His jest earned a giggle from the girl. He took one more drink before passing the bottle. You shinobi are an odd bunch. Is it just your team, or are all of your kind like you? She inquired, taking another sip. Well, I wouldn't say many are like me per se, but most shinobi are a bit off by civilian standards. With what we see in our line of work, most of it is a coping mechanism. I am not without mine either. I guess we just see the world a bit differently, he shrugged. Well, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you have to live like that. You're so young and you've already seen so much. I'm thankful for all you do, but I'm sorry as well. She drifted off when he shook his head. Like I said, don't be sorry. It's my choice and I don't regret it. If I regretted all of the choices I've had to make, I'd have gone crazy by now. I'll find somewhere I belong eventually, Amy, so don't feel sorry for me. The life of a shinobi is a lonely one, and I've accepted that. Naruto said with a hint of sadness in his voice. Amy simply nodded and handed him the bottle, watching him take another hefty swig before she spoke again. Well, if it ever gets to be too much, or you need to escape, come back here. This village, and I personally, will welcome you with open arms and without question. Naruto took another long draw of the bottle before handing it back one last time. Thanks Amy, you're pretty kind. But I feel kinda tired now. And with that he passed out, falling over and landing his head in her lap. She let out a squeak of surprise before a gentle smile graced her face. As she set the bottle aside, she brought her hands up to run her fingers through his hair. Good night Hina-chan, the boy purred. It seems you do have someone special to you. She thought as she settled in for the night. Sweet dreams. As the sun starts to rise above Nami no Kuni, a figure stirred on the bridge. Ah, looks like he is waking up. I hope he isn't too hungover, Amy thought with a giggle. Naruto stirred slowly, scrunching his eyes. Good morning Hinata. Huh? He questioned as he stared up at a brown-eyed girl. Well, it appears that I don't handle my sake very well if this situation and my headache is anything to go by. As he sat up he turned to her and asked, did we do anything last night? I don't mean to offend but I don't recall falling asleep. The girl giggled again, with more mirth this time and replied, no, we sat and talked before you passed out and fell on my lap. I decided to keep you company is all. Oh I see, Amy right? I think it's coming back to me. Yes, now who is this, Hina-chan? You were moaning about last night him? She must be quite the looker to have a rambling heart like yours thinking about her. A profuse blush crossed the boy's face, almost matching his hair color. She is one of the few people who is close to me is all, he mumbled out. Well, from the sounds of it she certainly has to be quite close to you, Amy said with a wink. Now let's get you to your team so you can get back to your Hina-chan y'all? Come on. Standing up Amy offered him a hand, pulling him up to begin their search for Team 7. Sasuke and Sakura were seated on the front porch of Tazuna's house, waiting for the arrival of their last member. Someone is coming from town, I see red hair and brown hair. The redhead must be him, but who is, oh my. That sly dog, Kakashi spoke, leaving his genin to connect the dots. Sakura blushed as Sasuke let out a grunt before they all stood up and readied to take off. As Naruto approached his team, he turned back and waved to his companion. With a smile and a wave back she turned and headed into town. So, that is why we have been waiting a little longer to return to Konoha. Can't say you didn't earn it, Kakashi said with a wink. Now let's get a move on, we should be home in a couple days if we make good time. With that Team 7 was off, happy to be traveling at a shinobi pace this time. And that is the summary of our mission Hokage-sama, Kakashi said as he finished his report. I see, Naruto, do you have the scrolls containing the heads of the demon brothers and Zabuza for their bounties, along with the scroll that has the sealed gato? Naruto nodded and placed them on the desk. Excellent, I will be upgrading this mission to an A rank due to the political ramifications of failure and the assassins after your charge. Unfortunately, since I did not receive payment from Tazuna for an A rank mission, the only bonus you will get is from the bounties. I have a feeling however that the bounties will more than make up the cost. You are all dismissed. Naruto, a moment if you would, Hiruzen said, waving his hand at the team. Yes Gigi? Naruto said after his team had left. This new scar you have, it is a result of the demon sword, correct? I was out for a week, which as you know is very unlike me. I spent some time with Kurama though, so that might be why. I think demon swords have a rather adverse effect on me because of my current resident. Naruto spoke. Seeing the questioning gaze he clarified, Kurama is the Kyuubi Gigi. I wasn't aware that the Biju had names. Good to know. Well, I don't know much about the effects of demon swords on Jinchuriki, but if you discover more do let me know, here is an requested. Oh, and Hinata was in here a week ago inquiring as to your return date. I'd suggest going to see her and Kurenai. With a nod, Naruto disappeared from the office. Appearing on the outskirts of the village, Naruto made his way towards Training Ground 8. Man, I am not gonna get off easy today. Well, I guess I should get this over with. Naruto decided as he arrived at the training grounds. Oh, Naruto-kun, I see duh. Kurenai started, however she quickly stopped her greeting when she took a look at the boy. Feeling a sense of foreboding, Shino and Kiba backed away slowly as Hinata stood with her mouth open. Taking this as their cue to leave, Kiba and Shino snuck away quietly. He's dead. He is so dead, they both thought. Staring at the boy in front of her, Hinata carefully ghosted her hand over Naruto's cheek. She dragged her hand down, following the scar all the way to the still cut open Anbu armor. Tears started to form in her eyes as she looked up at him, silently pleading for an explanation. Care to explain your new look, Naruto-kun? Kurenai asked, her tone leaving little room for negotiation. We had a little complication with a certain demon swordsman of the mist. I'm fine, we took care of it, he said with a shrug and a wave of his hand. He attempted to change the subject with, care to grab some barbecue? I haven't eaten yet today. As he turned to lead them into the village, a voice stopped him in his tracks. Oh no, you don't, mister. Get back here and explain. Damn, I guess I should have known that wouldn't work. Welp, it was a good life. And so I woke up a week later. No big deal, I'll tell you about the rest of the mission over food, he said nonchalantly. Smack. He felt a sudden stinging on his face, and as he brought his hand up to the left side of his face it felt hot. Looking down he met Hinata's glare. Her eyes were burning a hole in his soul, and he felt guilty for what he had done. He should have known she would be worried. Naruto got out as he found himself on his back with a teary Hinata on top of him, her head buried in his chest. Promise me, she demanded. What? Promise me. She cut him off. I am sorry. I promise I won't be so reckless in the future, Naruto whispered, wrapping his arms around her. Kurenai smiled at the sight. Now, let's go get some food, y'all? On me, she exclaimed before heading off into town. As Naruto and Hinata stood and started walking into town, Hinata clasped her hands around Naruto's arm. Receiving a quizzical glance, she simply said, you owe me for scaring me. Naruto just shrugged and gave her a nod. And you still owe me a cinnamon bun too, she whispered under her breath. It didn't escape Naruto's ears, however, as he smirked. I guess Amy was right. As the winter came to an end, the village geared up to host the Chunin exams. Kakashi had given his team a heads up he would be nominating them for the exams. Naruto decided to work on his Fuinjutsu and attempt to learn the Hiraishin. Kakashi spent his time with Sasuke and Sakura working on their ninjutsu and taijutsu skills. Naruto found most of his learning to be self-taught, as Kakashi wasn't a Fuinjutsu master and didn't know the Hiraishin either. So, the exams start today. How far did you get in your training, Naruto? Sakura asked. The team was meeting for breakfast before they headed towards the academy for the first part of the exams. I was able to apply storage seals to my wrists for shuriken and kunai. I also succeeded in increasing the potency of my handheld Fuinjutsu. Haven't made any progress in my dojutsu research though. You guys? Kakashi just worked on our taijutsu and ninjutsu potency. Sasuke picked up a new jutsu though, Sakura responded. Sasuke grunted. Let's just get to the exams. The sooner this is over, the sooner we are promoted. With nods, the team set off for the first exam. As the team passed the second floor on their way to the third, they noticed a large group of genin arguing with two others in front of a door labeled 301. A genjutsu? Well, I guess if they can't pick up on that, they don't belong in the exams, Naruto mumbled. Let's get into the room and keep a low profile, scout out the competition. Entering the real 301, Team 7 noticed they were only the second team to arrive. Taking up a position against the wall, Naruto evaluated the other team with his peripherals. A boy with a device on his back and a black bodysuit, a girl with a large fan, and a red-headed boy with a red jumpsuit and a gourd on his back. Their headbands indicate Suna, but what is this weird vibe I'm getting from the redhead? It feels familiar but foreign at the same time. Hey Kurama, do you recognize this aura? It is the aura of bloodlust from the Ichibi, Shukaku. That boy must be his Jinchuriki. The bloodlust leaking from him must mean his seal is weak or damaged, allowing Shukaku to manipulate him. Be careful when dealing with him, Kit. Thanks, Kurama. I'll keep that in mind. Oi, that team over there, the redhead is Suna's Jinchuriki. We should steer clear of them. Naruto warned his team. It seems that the other Konoha rookie genin teams are also here. At least we know some of our competition. His teammates nodded, avoiding a Jinchuriki was in their best interests. Glancing back at the entrance, Naruto watched as Team 10 approached them. I hope Ino doesn't do something stupid and announces to everyone. Hey Sasuke-kun, I'm glad you decided to take the exams. She shouted. Nope, I should have known she wouldn't use her head. For the Yamanaka, she sure isn't very intelligent sometimes. As all eyes in the room turned onto Team 7, a spectacled man with white hair approached Sasuke. Sasuke, right? I overheard the blonde over there call your name. Since you have been revealed, would you like some information on the rest of the competition? I have taken these exams 7 times and I have collected information on every person taking the exams. My name is Kabuto. Hearing this, the genin from Konoha condensed around the Chunin exam veteran. Well, who do you wish to know about? He asked the group. Rock Lee, the Suna redhead. Sasuke requested. And Naruto Uzumaki, a Hyuga asked. Looking for an edge, are you Neji? It won't help you against me, Naruto announced. Now let's see if your cards ring true, Kabuto. Very well. Rock Lee. Konoha genin. Age. 14. 57D, 21C, 1B rank mission. Teammates. Neji Hyuga and Tenten. Taijutsu expert. No skills in ninjutsu or genjutsu. Gaara of the Sand. Suna genin. Age. 13. 18D, 32C, 15B, 2A rank missions. Son of the Case Cage. Ichibi Jinchuriki. Teammates. Siblings Kankuro and Tamari. Utilizes sand in his offense and defense. Special note. He has returned from every mission untouched. The information on Gaara was met with several gasps, and a glare from Naruto. How does he have this information? I guess we'll see what he has on me. Naruto Uzumaki, Konoha genin. Age. 13. 60D, 15C, 3B, 2A rank missions. Spent 2.5 years in Anbu. 0 unsuccessful missions. Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Teammates. Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Son of Min. Naruto grabbed Kabuto by his throat and slammed him into the wall. Leaning forward to whisper in his ear, he asked, Now how would you know my lineage? None other than myself and 2 others in this village know of it, so do tread carefully. He warned with venom in his voice. If you decide to continue your report, you will lose your head. My master has given me the information on these cards. Kabuto whispered back. Alright maggots, listen up. Everyone take a number and take your assigned seat. The exam starts now. A large man with his headband on like a bandana shouted. The exam will be 1 hour. There are 9 questions in the first 45 minutes. After the first 45 minutes I will administer the last question. You start with 10 points. For every question you get wrong you lose a point. If one person on your team fails, the entire team fails. Get caught cheating, you fail. Clear? Begin, he bellowed. These are all Jonin and Cage level questions. I could maybe answer one of them. So I can answer one of them and still pass with 1 point, or I can do as the test is intended and attempt to cheat to get the answers. I think it's about time for a nap. Naruto reasoned. He answered the first question and then put his head down. Glancing to his side, he threw a wink at the quizzical Hinata before shutting his eyes. Alright scum, listen up. The 45 minutes is up. As you can see, many teams have been removed for cheating. I will explain the rules for the next question. Before I give the question you have a choice. Leave now, and fail. Retake the exams next year. If you stay, and get the question wrong, you and your team will be banned from taking the Chunin exams forever. You will remain a genin for the rest of your pitiful lives. Take this opportunity to leave now. The proctor announced. You can't do that to us. This guy has taken the exams 7 times. A Suna genin shouted. Well, you lot are unlucky, because I am the proctor for this exam and I make the rules. Now decide. Your future depends on your decision. Maybe next year you will get lucky and I won't be the proctor. He rebutted. Slowly teams started to disperse. After 10 minutes of waiting it seemed that no one else would leave. Is there no one else? No? Very well. Congratulations, you all passed the exam. The proctor announced. What is the question? What the fuck? The same Suna Genin yelled. To stay without the essential information or to abandon your mission? That was the question. Information is a powerful thing, the proctor said as he removed his headband. His head was riddled with scars, the remnants of extensive torture. You may find yourself in enemy hands. It will be imperative to your mission and your village that you do not break. Some villages, like Iwa, have more extreme methods of extraction. Before he could continue, the windows shattered and a smoke bomb went off. As the smoke cleared, a banner could be seen hanging from the ceiling. Standing in front of the banner is a woman with purple hair, a mesh shirt, orange skirt and a tan trench coat. My name is Anko, and I'm your proctor for the second exam. You've got 10 minutes to meet me at training ground 44. Let's go. With that she leapt out the window and took off. Welp, I guess that is arcade, Naruto mumbled before he shunshined away. Alright, here is how this works. Beyond this gate is training ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. It is named appropriately. Everything from wildlife to fauna can and will try to kill you. Each team will get a scroll. There are 2 scrolls. Collect both scrolls and get to the tower at the center of the forest. You have 5 days to accomplish this task by any means necessary. Lose a teammate and you are disqualified. Sign these forms to receive your scroll. Anko shouted to the gathered genin. What is our game plan, Naruto? Sakura asked. Sasuke turned to the redhead as well, waiting for the answer. I think we need to avoid Gaara's team at all costs. We should target one of the weaker teams, maybe the Ono team, and take their scroll. If we can make it to the tower quickly we can pick off the teams that arrive and take the scrolls we need. Sound good? Naruto suggested. With nods the teams steeled themselves for the next task. As the gates opened, Team 7 entered with their heaven scroll. Let's beeline for the tower and set up a kilometer off. We'll set up camp and traps and wait for passing teams. Naruto instructed. With that, they headed for the middle of the forest. We've been here for 2 days now and haven't seen anyone yet. This forest really wasn't over-exaggerated, Sasuke said. He was currently hanged into a bush beside Naruto, who had hanged himself into the trunk of a tree. It isn't to be underestimated. I do however sense 3 presences heading our way. If we're lucky they will trip my traps. Naruto replied. Give Sakura the heads up. Sasuke let a low whistle out, giving Sakura the signal that enemies were approaching. Well, what do we have here? Where is your team, girlie? A raspy voice asked. Turning around, Sakura found herself looking at 3 AIM nin, all clothed in tan jumpsuits with stitching across the front. They all wore respirators over their mouths. It seems we stumbled upon a lost Konoha nin. Let's see if she has the scroll we need, and if not I'm sure one more body won't make a difference to this forest. As the first AIM nin leapt towards Sakura, he stepped on a patch of grass and froze. What is this? I can't move, he shouted. What did you do, girl? She didn't do anything. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. Sasuke shouted as he leapt from his hiding spot. Immobilized, the AIM nin was caught in the blast. As the lead AIM nin was being bathed in fire, his 2 companions dodged to the sides of the forest. Sakura met the one head-on as Sasuke engaged the second. Sasuke slowly started pushing the AIM nin backwards. He took notice of the man's cloth covering his right eye. Feigning a punch with his right hand, Sasuke kicked his opponent in the right flank with his left foot as he attempted to block the punch. Grunting and sliding back, the AIM nin hit a tree as he came to a stop. Bringing his guard up for the next assault, he was shocked when he couldn't move a muscle. Go help Sakura, I've got this guy locked down, Naruto spoke as he removed himself from the back of the tree. He had his hand on the AIM nin's back with an incapacitation matrix spreading over his enemy's body. Now let's see if you have the scroll I need, Naruto searched the man as Sasuke came to Sakura's rescue. She was holding her own but was slowly being pushed back. Tossing some shuriken to allow her a moment to disengage, Sasuke landed in between them. Oi, I've got the Earth Scroll. Let's get out of here. Their teammate is dead anyways, so they are disqualified. Naruto shouted to his 2 teammates. Sasuke threw down a smoke bomb to cover his and Sakura's exit. As they grouped up in the canopy they headed towards the tower. We've got roughly a kilometer to go. Let's get out of this damn forest with haste, Sakura said. Aye, good riddance, Naruto agreed. Congratulations on completing the second exam. I am Hayate Gecko and I will be the proctor for the third exam. Before we get to the third exam however, we have to whittle down the competition. Too many people have made it to this stage, so we will be having preliminary battles. If you wish to leave, now is your chance. You are no longer on a team and will be fighting only for yourself for the remainder of the exams. Hayate announced to the gathered genin. Well, that is about it for me, Kabuto said, walking out of the arena. Anyone else? No? Alright, if you see your name on the board, appear in the arena. Everyone else up to the stands. The board rolled through the names before stopping. Sasuke Uchiha vs Dosu Kinuda. Good luck Sasuke, Sakura said. Naruto simply gave him a light punch on the shoulder before they jumped to the viewing area. This should be easy for Sasuke, but that device on his arm is peculiar. Naruto said as he leaned back against the wall. I don't know what it is for either, Kakashi replied. Alright, you both know the rules, the match goes until someone is unconscious, forfeits, dead, or I stop the match. Do try not to kill each other. Understood? Begin, Hayate said, jumping back as he did so. Immediately Sasuke took up a defensive stance, watching his opponent. He doesn't look special but I should be cautious of that bracer he has. I'll let him make the first move. Sasuke reasoned. Well if you won't start I guess I will. Dosu yelled, dashing towards Sasuke. He responded by tossing a wave of shuriken at the advancing enemy while jumping backwards. Dosu deftly avoided the shuriken and got within striking range. Sasuke brought his arm up to block the punch. Just after blocking Sasuke's head started swirling. What is this? I blocked his strike so why am I so dizzy all of a sudden? Is it that thing on his arm? Dosu spun out of the block and threw his foot into Sasuke's stomach, putting him on his back. You must be wondering why you are feeling nauseous, that would be due to my little device here. I can control the sound waves emitted from it, and use it to assault your ears and put you off balance, he explained. Thanks for the explanation, but it will be your downfall, fire style, great fireball jutsu. Sasuke yelled out, shooting flames from his mouth. Dosu used sound waves to disrupt the fire. From the flames came 8 shuriken, 5 of which struck true. Dashing forward, Sasuke drove a kunai into Dosu's stomach. As Dosu leaned forward onto Sasuke's shoulder he whispered in his ear, the snake grows restless. 1 month and it will strike. Dosu is unable to continue, Sasuke is the winner. Medics, Hayate yelled. Sasuke looked down at Dosu and nodded before heading towards the viewing area. The board rolled through the names again. Shino Aburame vs Yoroi Kato. Shino is the winner. Medics, Hayate announced. Masumi Tsurugi vs Kankuro. Kankuro is the winner. Medics, Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. Double knockout. Neither advance. Medics, Ten vs Tamari. Tamari wins. Medics, Shikamaru Nara vs Kin Tsuchi. Shikamaru wins. Naruto Uzumaki vs Kiba Inuzuka. Naruto smirked and sunshined to the arena. As Kiba leapt down he fixed a feral grin on Naruto. You know Uzumaki, I've got something to prove to you. I don't think you're any good for Hinata. And when I beat you, it will show her that I am right. That I can protect her better than you can, Kiba snarled as he got down on all fours next to Akamaru. You see Kiba, the reason you're not able to protect Hinata is because you think I'm protecting her. I should make it very clear, she is protecting me, not the other way around. And on top of that, she is protecting all of you from me, Naruto rebutted. As he finished his sentence his dojutsu flared. Man-beast clone, fang over fang, Kiba shouted. Naruto fired shuriken from his wrist seals, only to have them deflected. I guess he is a bit resilient as he spins, I'll just have to dodge. Naruto reasoned as he jumped to his left. Landing on his hands, he applied 2 incapacitation seals before pushing up to dodge Akamaru's charge. While he landed on his feet, he prepped 2 more incapacitation seals and held his hands out towards the charging Kiba. As Akamaru hit the ground where Naruto had just been he froze from his spin, having activated the trap. His companion getting immobilized caught Kiba off guard and he came out of his spiral out of control. Naruto flashed into Kiba's path and slammed his hands into Kiba's chest. Fear flared in Kiba's eyes as he locked onto Naruto's gaze. Kiba suddenly felt very small under the eerie eyes of his biggest competition. Hinata watched on from the stands, with her hands at her chest. When Naruto caught Kiba, she let a smile grace her worried features. However, when she seen the predatory smirk cross Naruto's face, she let out a gasp. That isn't his usual playful smirk. I hope he doesn't drive Kiba insane. Naruto stared into Kiba's eyes with his feral smirk, and Kiba felt his blood run cold. He watched as Naruto's tomo around his slit pupil swirled, fearing what would happen next. Slowly, he watched as Naruto's form morphed. His arms turned dark red and grew a spike from his elbow. His hair turned gray and grew down to his waist. He grew 2 incisors that came out of his mouth. His face turned the same color as his arms, and wings sprouted from his back. Now let me show you why you should be afraid, Kiba. Naruto drawled out. As he spoke, Kiba grew mortified as a pitch-black spider crawled out of his mouth. It slowly made its way across Naruto's arm. It would stop and seem to probe its surroundings with its front legs, seemingly searching for something. As it neared Kiba, it began to move faster and with more focus. It crawled up onto his face and prepared to crawl into his mouth. As it started to make its way into his mouth, everything faded with a shout. Naruto! Enough! Hinata yelled. Naruto paused and glanced up. As he made eye contact, his eyes faded. He dropped his grip on Kiba's throat as the illusion broke. Looking down on his opponent, Naruto kneeled in front of him and whispered, "Like I said, she is protecting you." Kiba passed out right after. Naruto wins. Medics! Hayate yelled. Naruto walked up the stairs and stopped by Hinata. "Thank you, Hinata, and I'm sorry. I got carried away." Hinata Hyuga vs Neji Hyuga. "And Hinata, before you go, good luck." Naruto spoke. She smiled back at him before jumping into the arena. "You should forfeit, you cannot defy fate," Neji spoke. "I will not back down, I've got people who believe in me." She replied before taking her stance. "I will change the ways of our clan." "You can't change fate, Hinata-sama," Neji spat with venom. He lunged at her, and began his deadly chakra-fueled strikes. Their battle raged on, and it appeared that neither had the advantage. The strikes were fluid, precise, almost like a dance. Neji was slowing, pushing Hinata back. He was landing about 1/4 of his strikes, and her about 1/5. "She isn't hitting hard enough. This is going to end soon." Naruto mumbled. "What do you mean?" Sakura asked. "The Hyuga have a special style of combat. They utilize their Byakugan to see the chakra points and then use precise chakra-filled strikes to hit these points, thereby disabling them. However, Hinata isn't hitting hard enough to do the required damage to Neji's chakra points. Hers are being closed but his aren't. This fight will end soon." Neji leaned forward and threw a strike into Hinata's chest. As she landed on her back, he said, "Give up, you can't fight fate. You are destined to lose this fight." She struggled to her feet. Halfway up she fell over again and coughed up blood. "No, I can't lose here. Proctor, call the fight, her chakra points are closed. She can't continue." Neji demanded. "No, I can continue. I must continue. I have to prove that I can walk by his side," she shouted. The conviction in her eyes was overwhelming. "Very well, 8 trigrams, 2 palms. 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms." As Neji went to finish his final strike on her chest, his hand was caught. Naruto held a firm grip on his arm, and was glaring daggers into Neji's eyes. "She is unconscious, and if you hit her with that strike she would die." "Medics!" Naruto yelled. As the medics came in and attended to Hinata, Naruto turned on Neji again. "For your sake, she had better live. Like I told Kiba, she is the person keeping you safe. If she dies, I will crucify you and spit in the face of your pitiful destiny." Naruto snarled. With that, he disappeared, on his way to the hospital to be beside Hinata. Gaara vs Rock Lee. Gaara is the winner. Medics! Hayate shouted. Zaku Abumi vs Choji Akamichi. Zaku wins. Alright, winners, gather around. Please take a number, it corresponds to your opponents in the finals. Hayate commanded as Anko handed out slips of paper. "I'll take one for Naruto," Kakashi said. "I'm also forfeiting my fight in the finals," Zaku said, throwing his paper back into the pot. The matches will be as you see on the board, and will be held in 1 month's time to allow proper preparations for hosting our guests. Hiruzen said. Looking at the board, Sasuke smiled. Looks like you will get the match he wanted. Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. Shikamaru Nara vs Tamari. Shino Aburame vs Kankuro. Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara. You have 1 month, train hard, and show up at your best. Good luck, Hiruzen said before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Kakashi leaned over to Kurenai and whispered, "So, do you want to go calm Naruto down or should I?" Kurenai just disappeared in a swirl of leaves, giving Kakashi his answer. He smiled before walking back to Sasuke. "Well, let's get training shall we? I've got a technique to show you." In Konoha General Hospital, Naruto is sitting hunched over with his head on the bed. Lying in the bed, being kept company by the redhead is Hinata, still unconscious from her fight with Neji. A knock sounds on the door, but the sleeping redhead doesn't acknowledge it. Slowly opening the door, the Hokage slips in with a second man. The second man has long, white hair, a horned headband on his forehead and a giant scroll on his lower back. "This the kid sensei? And he's been here for the past 3 days?" the second man asked. "Yes, Jiraiya. This is Naruto Uzumaki, your godson. He has been out for the past few hours so we can simply wait until he wakes up, although I doubt you will be able to get him to leave this room until she wakes up," Hiruzen replied, taking a seat by the door. "Hokage Jiji, why are you here?" Naruto groggily asked, wiping his eyes of excess hardened mucus. With a groan he stretched his muscles and stood. Yawning, he looked back at the room's newest occupants. "You know Naruto, it's not healthy for you to be ignoring your meals and proper sleep like this. You should be training for your finals match," Hiruzen replied. Naruto just fixed a glare on the Hokage, expressing his thoughts on leaving the room. "Who is our other guest?" He changed the subject. "Ah, this is Jiraiya, the frog sage. He is one of my students and was your father's sensei." "He is your godfather." Naruto's gave the man a puzzled look. "Why haven't I met him before?" "I can answer that, kid. I run a very large spy network across the world. It takes a lot of effort and travel to keep it operational," Jiraiya chimed in. "Okay, so why have you come back then?" Naruto asked. If his spy network is as vast as it is, I can only imagine the importance it has for Konoha, so he wouldn't return without a good reason. "You know, I didn't expect you to be so inquisitive about this situation. Honestly, I expected quite a bit of anger at me not being around to help raise you," Jiraiya confessed. "Yeah, well, as you can see, I ended up just fine. Learned to take care of myself at an early age, skipped the academy for Anbu. Can't really live a normal life when you're in the situation I am. So don't sweat it. What I want to know is why you came back now," Naruto asked again, shrugging at his childhood before growing serious again. "Geez, Minato isn't going to forgive me for this one, is he?" "Well, I have returned bearing grave news about a rather nefarious group. It concerns you, which is why I am here," Jiraiya conceded. "He isn't anything like I thought he would be. He has Kushina's looks, but Minato's mind. I expected it to be opposite honestly. This may be to my advantage though. He has Anbu training and a skilled mind. Sensei says he is good at Genjutsu and Fuinjutsu also. If I train him I'm sure he would surpass all of my expectations. Can the news wait a few days? I'm a bit overloaded with stuff at the moment," Naruto stated. He turned to Hinata and began fussing over her, fixing her sheets and tucking her in so she would be comfortable. He took her glass of water and emptied it, replacing it with a fresh glass. "It can wait, but your training can't. I am taking over for Kakashi to train you for the month until the finals. So quit fussing over your girlfriend and let's go," Jiraiya commanded. "Like I said, I am preoccupied at the moment and as such I won't be leaving yet. Besides, I've been doing some training of sorts anyways." Naruto trailed off. "I just met him, I shouldn't tell him much about what I've been working on. He might not approve. Do tell, how have you been training when you aren't even eating or sleeping properly?" Hiruzen asked, deciding to join the conversation. "I don't think I should disclose sensitive information to someone I don't know, Hokage Jiji. Jiraiya knows everything already. You can trust him, he will be your sensei after all," Hiruzen replied. "Very well. I've been testing a specific Fuinjutsu matrix in my mindscape. Once I have the basis down I will then experiment with adding timers to it, like I have done with my explosion and incapacitation matrices. Kurama is helping me. I trust this won't leave this room? Naruto explained. Of course, but if I may ask, what kind of matrix are you working on? I am rather adept with sealing. I'm no Uzumaki, but I'm one of the best that there is left in this world. Maybe I can lend a hand? Jiraiya asked. Also, who is Kurama? I thought you hadn't left this room in the past 3 days? Fuinjutsu experimentation in his mindscape? At such a young age too, this kid really does have Minato's brains. He thought, I am trying to make a matrix I can apply to my allies, specifically Hinata, that will render my dojutsu ineffective against them. I'm sure Hokage Gigi has briefed you on my dojutsu. The issue is that the seal also has to be able to work when I have Kurama's chakra active. Kurama is the Kyuubi, by the way. When I use his chakra, it allows me to utilize my genjutsu as more area of effect illusions instead of only being able to cast them on people I make eye contact with. If I can create a seal that will allow my allies to be omitted from this area of effect, it would allow me greater freedom when fighting in groups. My biggest worry is that the seal will have to have some of Kurama's chakra in it, but that can be deadly to most people. I haven't found a way to contain his chakra in the seal without corrupting the host yet. Naruto trailed off. Hiruzen and Jiraiya had their mouths on the floor. This kid, just how smart is he? The level of comprehension for Fuinjutsu required to be able to notice all of the potential issues with the kind of seal he is thinking of is that of a seasoned master Fuinjutsu user. Maybe I can't teach him anything. I will just have to offer my experience. Jiraiya thought. Snapping himself out of his state of shock, Jiraiya coughed before replying, Can I see the seal you have so far? Maybe a second eye could spot something you have been missing. As far as recognizing the potential problems, however, I think you've anticipated them all. Yeah, I'll draw it up for you. Hold on. Naruto unsealed a scroll and ink. This will take me a bit, he warned before getting to work. 15 minutes in, Jiraiya noticed a curious look on Naruto's face. Did he just discover a potential issue? It's like he hasn't written it before. Wait, no, it couldn't be. Have you ever written this seal out before? Jiraiya asked. No, I usually use hand seals, and in my mindscape I can create much more complicated seals than I can outside of it. So I've just been using shadow clones to create the seal I imagined over and over again, and then changing the issues I found. Naruto responded, earning another gaping look from the room's occupants. What? You know that not even most Fuinjutsu masters are capable of doing stuff like that, right? That's amazing. Jiraiya shouted. Oi, not so loud. And I know I'm not a normal Fuinjutsu user. It just seems to come natural to me. But more importantly, I think I discovered my issue with containing Kurama's chakra. Here, what do you think of this? Naruto asked, showing Jiraiya his scroll. Well, this to that, and that cycles properly, but what is this blank area for? It should be where you indicators for the dojutsu are for. Jiraiya asked. It's blank because I don't know what my dojutsu is. Nor does anyone I have encountered yet. When I find out what it is, I can complete the seal. Well, show me your dojutsu, and maybe I will recognize it, Jiraiya requested. Naruto silently obliged and activated his eyes. Staring back at Jiraiya are 2 yellow orbs, with a black slit for a pupil and 4 tomo around the pupils. Rising out of the boy's back were 2 wings seemingly made of bone. They flapped a couple times before disappearing. So, recognize it? I just showed you the abilities I have discovered and what it looks like. Naruto asked. So, it can cast genjutsu and it looks like that. I've heard of something like that once before in my travels, but I will have to get word out to my informants across the sea to confirm. I believe it comes from over there, Jiraiya responded. I'll get word out and then return. Once I do get back later today, we'll start your training. Like I said, Naruto started but was cut off with a wave of the man's hand. I know what you said. See you later, kid. And with that, Hiruzen and Jiraiya left the hospital room. Naruto sighed and sat back down. Naruto-kun? Where am I? A soft voice asked. His eyes went wide and he whirled towards the bed. Hinata, how are you feeling? You've been getting quite a lot of beauty sleep lately, Naruto asked, reaching over and squeezing her hand. She smiled at the gesture. I'm just sore is all. I don't feel any permanent damage to my chakra points, she answered. Now tell me why you look like hell, Naruto-kun. You better not have been neglecting your health to sit here and mope. She fixed a stern glare on her face, but her eyes sparkled in silent gratefulness. The guilty downward glance of Naruto gave Hinata her answer. Baka, she whispered, flicking him on the forehead. You should be training for your match in a month, not doting over me. I'm not too worried. I'm confident I can beat Neji, and your well-being is more important than some exam anyways, he shrugged, giving her his infamous smirk. Why you face Neji-san? Are you going to kill him? She asked, her voice hesitant. When he didn't respond she spoke again. I don't want you to kill him, Naruto-kun. I know you are going to teach him a lesson, but don't kill him, okay? He can still change his path. Naruto didn't reply, but simply looked away and nodded. I'm serious, Naruto. I don't want you to have blood on your hands because of me, she admonished. Look at me, do you understand? I am fine. He didn't kill me, so don't kill him. Save him instead, for me. Please. Alright, you win, Hina-chan? Naruto relented. He placed his head in her lap and gave her hand a squeeze. I always do, Naru-kun. Now go get Jiraiya-sama and train. I'll keep your cave warm for when you return in a month, Hinata ordered, giving Naruto a wry smile when he cast his questioning glance at her. She winked and waved him out of the room. Boys, so stubborn. I want to thank everyone for making the journey to Konoha for the final part of the Chunin exams. Hiruzen bellowed to the arena. We even have a couple cages in our midst. I hope you finalists will give this tournament your all. The pride of your village is in your hands. Now without further delay, let us begin the first match. In the stadium, a man steps forward. I am Genma, and I will be the proctor of this tournament. The fight will end when one is unable to fight, forfeits, or I stop the fight. Understood? Receiving nods, he continued, good. First match is Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. Everyone else moved to the observation room. Are both of you ready? Begin, Genma said, jumping out of the way. He could feel the tension in the air. So you have decided to fight fate. The outcome of this match has already been decided. Your resistance is futile. Neji spoke, taking his Jukin stance and activating his Byakugan. Naruto smirked before activating his dojutsu. Whose eyes do you think are better? His tomo spun rapidly, and he prepped his hand seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 clones spread out around Neji, some using their shuriken seals on their wrists to launch a ranged assault. He's forcing me to this already. Rotation. Neji rotated in a tight circle, propelling chakra from his hands, creating a dome around him. The incoming shuriken bounced off the dome. The clones landed just outside of the range of the dome, placing incapacitation seals on the ground. 10 clones prepared explosion seals and leapt at the chakra dome around Neji. Hitting it at the same time, a massive explosion went off, the resulting smoke covering the impact area. Dashing out of the smoke came Neji. With quick and precise strikes he dispelled all of Naruto's clones. The explosion had disabled the incapacitation seals and left Neji a clear path forwards. Taking advantage of the opening, Neji closed the gap between himself and his enemy. As Naruto watched Neji close in, he prepped incapacitation seals on his hands and smirked. Like herding sheep, he thought. His tomo flared again as he defended the chakra-filled strikes. Naruto took care to minimize the damage of blocking by manipulating his chakra flow. He couldn't cut it off completely, but he could reduce the flow to his limbs momentarily to avoid losing function of the limb. You're in range of my divination. 8 trigrams, 2 palms. 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Neji finished his barrage of strikes with a strike to Naruto's chest. As he fell backwards, Neji spit out, I told you that fate had decided my victory already. It was foolish to fight me. Turning on his heel, Neji was shocked when a hand wrapped around his ankle. Looking down, he seen a skeletal hand holding him still. A second skeletal hand gripped his knee, and the hands began pulling themselves up his torso. Whirling around, Neji gaped at the sight of his opponent. Naruto was gripping Neji's legs, looking up at him with a feral grin and half his face missing, showing his skull. What the hell? What are you? Neji screamed out. He watched as the flesh on Naruto's bones corroded and melted into nothingness. Rising to his feet, the skeletal Naruto lifted Neji up by his neck and squeezed, cutting off the majority of his air supply. You had no chance of winning the moment you stepped into this arena, Neji. Your fate is nothing but a joke. Wake up and see what's around you, Naruto spoke. Suddenly Neji's vision shattered, and the pieces fell like glass to reveal the reality of things. Being held up by the throat by Naruto, his entire body was covered in a sealing matrix. Looking into his opponent's face, he observed the smug smirk on Naruto's face. Now that you've joined us in the realm of reality, let me test a new seal on you. It's particularly nasty, but I'm sure it will give you an idea about what your own techniques do to people, Naruto explained. He formed a seal on the tips of his fingers and smiled wickedly. Thrusting his hand into Neji's stomach, he dropped him on the ground. Neji writhed in pain on the ground. Looking down with his Byakugan, he could see chakra leaking from every chakra point in his body. To the average observer, Neji was bleeding profusely from many points on his body. Slowly Neji's movements began to slow, before he stilled. Having fallen unconscious, Naruto prepared his seal to stop the hemorrhaging Fuinjutsu. Neji Hyuga is unable to continue. Naruto Uzumaki wins. Genma shouted. The crowd was deathly silent as Naruto leaned towards Genma. He needs medical attention immediately or he will die, Naruto warned. Genma nodded and motioned for the medics to make haste. The bleeding had stopped, but the loss of blood and chakra was severe. In the crowd, many who knew Naruto were lost in thought, recalling the battle. Jiraiya in particular was quite shocked about the battle. To everyone but Neji, the match was over quickly. Neji had performed a seemingly random defensive rotation before rushing at Naruto, being lifted by his neck and having seals placed on him. It was over in 5 minutes. Jiraiya shivered at the power of Naruto's genjutsu. The silent crowd was justified by how fearful this display was. The horrified screams of Neji alone would strike fear into one unknowing of the redhead's abilities. In the honored guest's booth, the case cage was deep in thought as well. I'm going to have to move the invasion up. It didn't look like the boy used much of his reserves, but any bit under 100% is better than having him at 100%. I'll give word for Gaara to unleash his wrath during his match. Hopefully the next two end as quickly as this fight. I'll give word for Kankuro to forfeit as well. Tamari won't even if I order her to, so no point in asking her. Next match is Shikamaru Nara vs Tamari, Genma announced. Tamari is the victor by forfeit. I have also received word that Kankuro has forfeited the next match against Shino Aburame, making him the winner. The next match will therefore be Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara. Competitors please enter the stadium. Genma announced to the arena. Gaara and Sasuke appeared in the arena in a flash of sand and leaves respectively. Gaara fixed Sasuke with a bloodthirsty glare as sand circled his body, almost resembling a snake waiting to strike. You both know the rules, begin. Genma shouted, leaping back out of the way. Gaara grinned widely while waiting for his opponent to strike. Mother wants your blood, he shouted, raising his hand and firing sand at Sasuke. Sasuke took evasive action, dodging the sand while making his way closer to his opponent. Activating his Sharingan, he made some hand signs while running. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. He shouted, launching a massive fireball at Gaara. Sand flared up and encased Gaara, protecting him. However, it seemed the fire was hot enough to turn the sand to glass. Sasuke slid to a stop and started channeling chakra. He engulfed his arm in lightning chakra, and chipping could be heard throughout the arena. Chidori, he shouted before continuing his charge at Gaara. He reached Gaara and plunged his Chidori into the glass encasement surrounding him. The lightning carved through the glass, and with Sasuke holding his hand in the hole, everything went quiet. Suddenly a murmur could be heard from the sand, blood, 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 my blood. Is that my blood? You made me bleed my own blood. No one makes me bleed my own blood. The scream was deafening, and promptly after the sand exploded outwards. Sasuke retreated to the edge of the arena. This isn't good. I knew he was unstable, but this is another level. Tamari, we need to grab him and move now. Kankuro shouted. Both of the siblings vaulted into the arena and smokescreen from the explosion. After a tense moment, Tamari cleared the smoke with her fan to reveal Kankuro holding Gaara with his puppet. Let's move. We need to vacate the area. It's beginning. As the Suna siblings leapt from the arena, a massive crash sounded from the western outskirts of Konoha. 3 giant snakes made their way through the wrecked wall. Hokage-sama, we are under attack from Otto Nen and Suna Nen, and Anbu reported, appearing in the cage box. What is the meaning of this case cage? Hiruzen demanded. Standing, the case cage dropped his robes, revealing himself to be the Hokage's student. Orochimaru, I should have known, Hiruzen scowled. Very well, you leave me no choice. I will finish here what I started years ago. Caught in the chaos, Naruto was frantically searching for Jiraiya or Kakashi to get the gist of the situation. Spotting the white hair of his sensei and old partner, he dashed towards him. Kakashi-sensei, what is going on? And what are my orders? Otto and Suna are invading. Orochimaru has engaged the Hokage. You are to assemble a small strike team and go after the Suna Jinchuriki. He is highly unstable and must be contained. Any and all methods are authorized, Kakashi ordered. With a nod, Naruto disappeared. I've got to find at least 2 more people to form this strike team. Hinata for tracking would be good, Shikamaru for tactical. Speak of the devil, Shikamaru. We are under attack from Otto and Suna, I need you with me. We need to find Hinata and 1 other person for a pursuit and subduel of the Suna Jinchuriki. Naruto said. Gotcha, Hinata was just over there with Shino and Kiba. Let's grab them, Shikamaru replied. Naruto nodded and took off. Hinata, Kiba, Shino. I need you 3 with me and Shikamaru. We are to pursue and subdue the Suna Jinchuriki. Do you understand the mission? Naruto asked upon finding Team 8. Shino and Hinata nodded, but Kiba opened his mouth. Wait, what is going on? We are under attack from Suna and Otto. The Suna Jinchuriki was taken by his siblings and we are to pursue them and subdue the Jinchuriki, preferably before he loses control completely. You 3 are the best tracking team we've got. Let's go, we are wasting daylight. Naruto confirmed for Kiba. With that, the impromptu group was off, chasing after their prey. Spread out in arrowhead formation. Kiba on the left, Shino on the right, Hinata at the front, Shikamaru in the middle and myself at the rear. Move as fast as possible, Naruto barked, receiving nods and silent compliance. The team had been traveling for 45 minutes before Kiba spoke up. I smell their trail. Hinata, Shino, do you guys have anything? I can't see anything. Shino? Hinata answered. My bugs have found them, 4 kilometers ahead. We will meet them in 20 minutes at our current pace. Plan for engaging? Shino replied. Naruto looked at Shikamaru who took the K. It would be in our best interest to have Naruto confront Gaara. Myself and Hinata will take Temari while Shino and Kiba deal with Kankuro. Naruto, if you can get Gaara under a genjutsu that can save us a lot of trouble. I don't want him losing control completely. We should also try and separate Gaara from his siblings. Questions? Shikamaru explained. Also, Naruto, you should use as many layers as possible and utilize as much of Kurama as possible right off the bat. I don't want to take any chances, understood? Shikamaru asked. A nod from Naruto had them refocusing on their approaching target. The target is just up ahead, get ready, Hinata said. Kankuro's puppet has Gaara. Take the puppet out first. Kiba, it is your job to separate Gaara from the puppet. Shikamaru ordered. Man-beast clone. Fang over fang. Kiba shouted, barreling in towards the puppet. Caught by surprise, the puppet dropped Gaara. Shino swarmed Kankuro with his insects as Hinata dove at Temari. Shikamaru landed at the edge of the small clearing and prepared his shadows. Naruto took this opportunity and prepared his incapacitation Fuinjutsu. Rifling towards Gaara, he activated his dojutsu and drove his hands into Gaara's chest, spreading a sealing matrix across the Suna Jinchuriki. Naruto tossed Gaara over his shoulder and took off further into the forest, leaving his comrades to deal with the other 2 Suna nen. Coming to a clearing, Naruto placed Gaara against a tree and tied him up. I can't imagine this is going to hold him. I can feel the malice coming from him, Naruto mumbled to himself. Kit, you should reinforce your seals and start layering genjutsu on him. I can feel Shukaku's chakra swelling inside him. If he breaks loose, the only way to beat him is for me to take over, and I don't think you can bring yourself back after that yet. Kurama spoke in Naruto's mind. Alright Kurama, let's go to 4 tails, and I'll layer as much as I can, Naruto responded. He activated his dojutsu and started pumping Kurama's chakra outwards. A blood-red chakra cloak formed around him, bubbling with energy. Slowly a tail grew from the cloak as Naruto's features grew more feral. His incisors grew and stuck out of his mouth, his fingernails elongated and came to a sharp point half an inch past his fingertips. The tail split into 4 tails, swaying to and fro behind the boy. Naruto dropped to all fours, and fixed his gaze on Gaara. We have to keep him awake, but subdued. If he goes unconscious then Shukaku will be released. Kurama warned. Naruto nodded as his tomo flared. Gaara's eyes widened as a serene setting encompassed him. A soft smile crossed his face. This is nice, he mumbled. It's been so long since I've slept, maybe just a little nap? Fuck, he's going to fall asleep. Gotta change the settings, but what could keep him calm? Maybe a slaughter. Naruto panicked before slowly layering yet another illusion into the jutsu. As Gaara was about to nod off, he heard the familiar sounds of battle. In the distance the ringing of kunai and shuriken could be heard. Blood, mother wants blood. The boy screeched before launching himself towards the chaos. He reveled in the madness of battle. A vicious smile adorned Gaara's face as he slaughtered the endless onslaught of foes. This feels amazing, he yelled. Does this please you, mother? His relentless attacks continued on the sea of ninja charging down towards the gully he found himself in. More? You want more, mother? Take as much as you want, mother. With that final yell, Naruto could feel a disturbance. Time slowed as Gaara fell upon the ground, suddenly unconscious. Fuck, what happened? Kurama, we've got a problem. I can feel the Ichibi coming. Naruto trailed off as a massive explosion of sand occurred at the center of the gully Gaara had fallen in. The illusions all cracked and shattered, leaving a grossly disfigured Gaara where the boy and tree originally were. He had a massive tail of sand extending from his back, with blue lines covering it. His right arm was encased in a large claw of sand that touched the ground when he stood straight. Kurama, what options do we have here? Can I deal with this with 4 tails? Naruto asked. The boy is still conscious, but he is rampaging. If you can drain him but avoid knocking him out, we should be okay. Naruto nodded, and prepped his seals. Dojutsu would no longer work on the Suna Jinchuriki as he was in a blind rage. His only option was his new seal. This is going to be dangerous. Hopefully this seal can pull through. Dashing forward, Naruto released a hail of shuriken from his wrist seal, attempting to get close enough to apply the seal. I have to avoid applying the seal to the chakra cloak, and hit him directly. He rolled to his right to avoid a piercing overhead strike from the sandtail. Using 2 of his chakra tails, Naruto pinned the sandtail. Continuing forward, he ducked under the horizontal swipe of Gaara's sandclaw. As the limb passed over top of him, Naruto applied his strongest explosion seal to it, hoping for a distraction. As the explosion went off, Gaara screeched in pain. As he flailed around, Naruto seen his opening. Closing the distance, Naruto slammed his left hand into Gaara's chest, knocking the boy off his feet and onto his back. He used his 4 chakra tails to pierce and pin the limbs of his opponent, watching as the seal spread across his body. Slowly and methodically, Gaara started bleeding from his chakra points. He writhed in pain, unable to free himself from the agony. Naruto let out a sigh. The seal was working. His relief turned to horror as he heard a voice yell at the duo, Gaara. Enough. The invasion is over. We lost. It was Temari who was yelling from the edge of the clearing. Gaara's eyes shot open, and his head twisted backwards at a disturbing angle. A grin appeared on his face as he mumbled one word. Blood. Gaara's sandtail shot forward towards his sister. Shocked by the aggression, she froze and held her arms in front of her. The sickening sound of flesh being torn was heard, and hot blood hit Temari's face. She opened her eyes and found herself staring into Naruto's face. He had the sandtail through the right side of his chest, and blood coming from his mouth. Gaara, subdued, get. Hinata, I'm going to lose control. Naruto coughed out. Temari watched as his eyes rolled back into his skull and a malicious killing intent made itself present. Naruto fell to the ground as his blood-red chakra cloak seemed to swirl and bubble. The clearing was rising in temperature fast. Temari's eyes grew wide when she seen a 5th tail emerge from Naruto's chakra cloak. The anger and malice in the air screamed at her instincts to run. Get anywhere from here, but she found herself frozen in her spot. She was broken from her stupor when 5 figures entered the clearing. What the fuck is that? Kiba shouted, pointing at the blood-red blob of chakra with 6 tails on the ground in front of Temari. Temari, get away from him. Kankuro grabbed Gaara. Shino, Shikamaru, Kiba, stay out of this. He will kill you if you get too close. Hinata ordered. She stepped into the clearing and stood a few feet away from the chakra monstrosity on the ground. Kankuro and Temari had grabbed Gaara and retreated to the edge of the clearing with the 3 Konoha genin. "Hinata, get back, he is going to lose control. He could kill you," Kiba shouted. Hinata rounded on Kiba and fixed him with a glare that stopped him cold. "Did you forget what Naruto told you after your fight? Under no circumstances are any of you to enter this clearing, understood? One of you needs to get Jiraiya-sama as fast as possible." Hinata turned back towards Naruto and watched as the form of a boy with 6 tails rose from the ground. The figure's eyes were an eerie white, a stark contrast to his blood-red body. The figure took a cautious step towards Hinata and opened its mouth. It didn't say anything, but it opened and closed its mouth a few times. "Hi Kurama, I need you to calm down and give me Naruto back, okay?" Hinata said as she smiled at the figure. She coated her hand in her familiar blue chakra and held it out to Naruto. The figure cocked its head to the side, seemingly regarding the foreign gesture. He stood staring at the hand for 20 minutes. The whole time Hinata stood with a gentle smile on her face. The onlookers were too stunned to speak, not wanting to set the figure off. They stared silently as time seemed to stop in the clearing. A gasp escaped Temari as the figure moved his arm, breaking the stalemate. Slowly, Naruto raised his hand and placed it in Hinata's. She closed her hand around his, and pumped more chakra into her hand. The sheer heat of Naruto's chakra cloak was quickly evaporating her own coating over her hand, needing to constantly be replaced. Hinata never dropped her smile as she continued to drain her chakra reserves. In her peripheral she sighed when she watched a frog pop up behind Shino and open its mouth, revealing Jiraiya with one of Shino's beetles on his shoulder. Fixing her attention back on Naruto, she covered herself in chakra and stepped forward. She only had 5 seconds before her own reserves would be depleted from this action, so she hoped it would be enough time for Jiraiya. Wrapping her arms around the boy, she squeezed him in a loving embrace. Naruto remained still, but gasped as a hand slammed into his back. Looking behind him, Naruto seen Jiraiya with his hand on his back, a seal spreading across his body. He nodded and whispered, "Thank you," before falling to the ground unconscious. Hinata caught the boy before he hit the ground, and rested his head in her lap. She ran her fingers through his hair, never moving her focus from him. Jiraiya let out the breath he had been holding, before walking up to the onlookers. "Head back to Konoha. You 3 Chunin nin understand you are prisoners of war, yes?" Receiving a nod he looked at Shikamaru before he continued, "Good, these 3 will escort you. Be warned, the village is not unscathed, and we lost many good ninja today. Take these 3 to Ibiki at T&I for holding in the Anbu cells, then wait for me at the Hokage Tower." Dismissed. The trio nodded before taking up a loose formation around Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara. Looking back at Hinata and Naruto, Jiraiya motioned for his toad summon to approach. "Let's get you 2 back to his cave, shall we? I've got some pressing matters to attend to." Konoha had succeeded in repelling Suna and Otto, but the price was steep. Orochimaru had succeeded in killing Hiruzen, at the cost of his arms. Many Konoha nin were missing, presumed dead. Sasuke had disappeared during the battle, and his body has yet to be recovered. 3 days after the battle, a large funeral was held for Hiruzen, after which Jiraiya was approached by the Hokage's advisors. They informed him of their want for him to become the next Hokage because they hadn't heard back from Tsunade yet. Hiruzen had sent word for Tsunade to return and become Hokage before the finals of the Chunin exams, due to the worrying news Jiraiya's network uncovered. Jiraiya refused and instead said he would track down Tsunade. A week later Jiraiya returned with Tsunade, who was sworn in the following morning. Naruto was asleep for 3 weeks after his fight with Gaara. When Tsunade had returned to the village she insisted he be moved from his cave to the hospital so she could monitor him. Naruto had received visits from Jiraiya, Tsunade, and a couple classmates while he was asleep. Hinata almost lived in the hospital room with him. The news of the aftermath of the invasion came as a shock to Naruto, but given his Anbu training he adapted quickly. A knock could be heard on Tsunade's door. Happy for the distraction from all the paperwork she barked out, "Enter." Looking up she found Naruto entering with Jiraiya behind him. "Ah Naruto, what can I do for you today?" she asked, folding her hands in front of her face. "Afternoon Hokage-sama. As you know, one of my teammates is Mia, and as such we are crippled as a team. I wish to request my reinstatement into the Anbu on paper, with the assignment of a long-term surveillance mission with Jiraiya-sensei. Given the situation of the world right now, I believe now is a good time for me to leave and train. Naruto stated. He fixed a hardened and determined look on his face as he explained his reasoning. I see. How long will you be gone, Jiraiya? And can you keep him safe from this Akatsuki you have heard rumors of? Tsunade asked, pointing her imposing stare at Jiraiya. Yes, I believe I can both vastly increase the boy's abilities as well as obtaining much needed information about this new group. We would be gone for at least 2 years, but more likely 4. This time will prove invaluable to Naruto in preparing him for what is to come. He replied, his face void of the usually playful demeanor it usually holds. Very well, when will you leave? She asked. 3 days we will depart at sunrise. Jiraiya answered. With a nod and wave from Tsunade the duo left her office. Well, better go let my friends know and prepare to leave. If I survive I'll meet you at the gate, he said, disappearing in a flash. Naruto wandered through the village, his hands in his pockets. He was slowly making his way to the Anbu headquarters to retrieve his old mask. If he was going to be reinstated he might as well get his mask back. As he walked through the village, the finishing touches of reconstruction were being completed on the destroyed buildings and the wall. Naruto had been asleep for most of the construction and hadn't seen the true scope of devastation that befell the village. Reaching the Anbu HQ, he entered and was greeted by the recruitment officer. "Ah, Uzumaki-san, returning at last, please go ahead. Your locker is as you left it." Naruto nodded and continued to the locker room. Opening his locker, he reaching in and grabbed the only thing inside, a white mask in the shape of an owl face, with a line down the left side passing through the eye. Sighing, he sealed the mask in a storage seal on his headband and exited the building. I should probably tell Hinata that I'm leaving, and Sakura since we are teammates. I'll tell Sakura real quick before I go find Hinata, Naruto thought to himself on his way through the village. Naruto made his way to the Haruno household. With a brief knock he stood outside waiting. Moments later Sakura answered the door. "Hello, hey Naruto, what's up? Please, come in," she said, beckoning him inside. "I just wanted to tell you that since Sasuke is Mia and our team is sidelined because of it, I will be rejoining the Anbu. I am leaving in 3 days for an extended surveillance mission and could be gone for a couple years," Naruto said, standing in the entryway now. "Oh, I see. Well, thanks for telling me. I'm assuming you need to get going and tell someone else, y'all?" Sakura replied with a playful smirk. Naruto nodded and made his exit. Now the challenging one, might as well get this over with as quick as possible, Naruto reasoned before flashing away to the Hyuga compound. Approaching the gate, he was halted by the guards. "State your business," one demanded. "I am looking for Hinata-sama as I wish to speak with her. It is an urgent matter. Is she available?" Naruto responded, thanking his Anbu training for being able to act professional at this compound. The Hyuga family still wasn't fond of him. "No, she is currently occupied. I will let her know you wish to speak with her," the guard replied. With a nod, he left. The Hyugas might not like him, but they always did perform their duties. "I guess I could just go back to my cave and wait. She should be able to find me pretty quickly with her Byakugan," Naruto thought before heading towards his dwelling. On his way home he picked up some cinnamon buns, whistling to himself throughout his walk. He stopped in at a few more shops, collecting ingredients for a meal tonight. I wish Kurenai were around, but with the chaos of the invasion all available Jonin are on missions right now. I probably won't see her until I return. That isn't going to be a fun conversation either, he shivered at the thought of that talk. He was pulled out of his musings as he arrived home. Putting his dinner supplies down, he set about preparing for his journey. He knew Hinata would want to cook with him, so he would take care of some other tasks while he awaited her arrival. Unsealing his mask, he set it on a bench beside his Anbu chest armor. He took his bracers off and placed them down as well. Emptying his shuriken and kunai seals into large boxes beside the bench, he began the menial task of counting his supplies. Naruto decided that his current stock of 200 shuriken and 120 kunai would be enough until he could resupply wherever they stopped. Next he set about taking measure of his Fuinjutsu supplies. He removed 22 scrolls from his seal on his belt, and also removed 4 bottles of ink and 2 brushes. I'll have to restock my ink and scrolls. I'll do that tomorrow. Before Naruto could continue with his inventory, he looked up and found Hinata leaning against the entrance to the cave. Her face was contorted into a look of worry and fear, and her gaze was fixed on the mask on his bench. Naruto sighed as he stood up and waited for her to recompose herself. Are you going back? She whispered. He had to strain his hearing to catch it, but he did. He didn't open his mouth, just nodded. Her gaze was still stuck on the white owl mask. With shaky steps Hinata made her way to the bench. She picked up the mask cautiously, almost as if it would reach out and bite her. Tracing her fingers over the thick black vertical line on the left side of the mask, a tear fell from her eye. This seemed to break the dam as she started sobbing quietly. Naruto took the mask from her and placed it on the bench. Turning towards her, he moved to envelope her in a hug, but was stopped when she started hitting him in the chest. He stood still and let her vent her anger at him, a frown on his face. Eventually she stopped hitting him, seemingly having run out of energy. He pulled her into him and wrapped her up in a warm embrace. He didn't say anything, simply rubbing circles on her back. Her body stopped shaking sometime later, and her sobbing stopped. With her tear-stained face she looked up at him and spoke. When? And how long? 3 days. Approximately 4 years, he replied with regret evident in his voice. She nodded, and to his surprise didn't start crying again. I see. 4 years, what is so important? She asked, stepping away from him and breaking the embrace. You know I can't answer that. I need to know that what you're doing is necessary, Naruto. The lack of an honorific shocked him. He nodded slowly before opening his mouth. Delaying the 4th grade shinobi war, he said softly, looking to the side as he did. This was going to be dangerous, and he knew Hinata wouldn't like the sounds of that. Oh, I see. Well, we can't send you away on an empty stomach, can we? She said, moving towards the kitchen. Naruto started but was cut off. I know, Naruto-kun. I know I am ignoring this, and I know that it is important and I can't stop you. So please, just spend these last couple days with me. Spend tonight with me, and let me pretend, okay? I want to have something to hold on to for the next 4 years. Her tone was pleading, and she was almost begging him to give in. Slowly he tilted his head down, giving in to her demands. Grabbing his hand, she pulled him towards the kitchen. Good, now help me prepare dinner. He smiled. It was a small smile, but it was genuine. He would miss this, he would miss her. After dinner, Naruto and Hinata spent the evening sitting outside the cave staring up at the night sky. I've always liked the view out here. The lack of light pollution really makes the night sky shine, Hinata confessed. He replied with a nod. Shall we retire for the night? I am a bit drained, he asked. Hinata nodded, before standing and taking his hand. Dragging him inside, she pulled him over to the bed. Sitting down on the bed, she did not relinquish her grip when Naruto moved to get his sleeping bag and put it on the floor. With a questioning glance he looked back at her. Hinata simply shook her head and pulled on his hand. Giving in, he nodded. Allowing Hinata to pull him down onto the bed, he lay down. Opening his mouth to ask a question, she put her finger over his lips. I'm going to get changed, you get ready for bed too. I know you don't like to sleep as you are. She ordered, getting up and going to the bathroom. Naruto sighed before sitting up and pulling his sandals off. He changed out of his pants and into some lighter black pajama pants. Sighing he sat back down on the bed. Before he could lie down he felt 2 hands at the small of his back. He lifted his arms into the air as the hands pulled his shirt up and over his head. Naruto shivered as the cool hands traced his back. He felt them linger over the 3 long jagged scars that cut across his back diagonally from his left shoulder down towards his right hip. He felt Hinata rest her head against his back before she whispered, You never told me about how you got this scar, Naru-kun. I told you I wouldn't haunt you with my time in the Anbu. She nodded at his response, pushing her face into the crevice between his shoulder blades. She snaked her arms around his back and up to wrap around his torso. She moved her hips so she could wrap her legs around his waist from behind as well, latching onto him like a monkey. Neither of them spoke a word as we sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the closeness of each other. After a while, Hinata untangled herself from Naruto's back and pushed him down onto the bed. He finally took notice of her choice of bedwear. She had on one of his t-shirts and a pair of tight shorts. She broke him out of his observations when she climbed on top of him, putting a leg on each side of his waist. Since she was smaller than him, She could straddle his waist and still lay her head on his chest. Snaking her arms under his shoulders and up into his hair, she put her head down on his chest and smiled. Sensing the questioning look he was giving her, she replied without looking up, "I'm comfy like this. Do you have any complaints?" Naruto smirked and shook his head. He brought his hands down, pulled the blanket over top of them, and put his hands on her upper thighs. Feeling emboldened by the current position, he tucked his head down and placed a kiss on the top of Hinata's head. He felt her face go red from the heat it was emitting. "Good night, Hina-chan, and thank you for everything you do for me," he whispered. Hinata decided to be bold as well, and turned her head slightly to kiss his chest. She put her head back down and nuzzled into him. "Sweet dreams," she whispered, and even quieter, so quiet she thought she said it in her head, she mumbled out, "I love you," before closing her eyes and falling asleep. Naruto barely picked up her last statement, and squeezed her thighs in response before following her lead and going to sleep. It is around mid-morning in Fire Country, and two men are walking down the road an hour outside of Konoha. One man has long spiky white hair, red face paint and a scroll on his back. He wears a red haori over top of his tan shirt and pants with sandals on his feet. His partner has wild red hair that defies gravity sticking out behind his head. He has a sleeveless, long black trench coat that reaches his knees that he keeps open at the front to reveal a half-transparent mesh shirt. His arms are covered in bandaged wrappings. He has a black belt holding up camo cargo pants that are tucked into bandage wrappings, which cover from the bottom of his calf down, with shinobi sandals on his feet. Over his face is a white owl mask with a single vertical black line on the left side of the mask, cutting through the eye hole. The 6'2" 18-year-old is walking with his hands in his pockets, whistling quietly to himself. Naruto Uzumaki and Jiraiya are finally returning to Konoha. As the gates came into view, Naruto sealed his mask away in his headband that hung around his neck. "Almost 5 years, huh? I'm gonna be in a load of shit soon. Was all that time researching really necessary, Ero Sennin? It probably cost us a good half a year total." Naruto drawled out. He was excited to be back, but he was regretting the ass-kickings he knew were coming his way. "Of course, I can't give up an opportunity for research. A man's gotta make a living somehow," Jiraiya exclaimed. The guards stopped the duo from entering the gates, not caring to take full notice of who it was. "Name and reason for your visit please," one of the guards drawled out. "Is that really necessary? I don't think 4 years and some change is enough for a village to forget who we are," Jiraiya said, earning a smirk from Naruto as the guards looked up. Their jaws dropped and they couldn't seem to get their vocal cords to function. "I'll take that as permission to enter," Jiraiya said, walking through the gate. As Jiraiya and Naruto walked through the village, almost everyone they came across stopped what they were doing and gaped at the pair. It had been almost 5 years since the duo had been seen in Konoha. Word had spread of Naruto subduing the Suna Jinchuriki, and despite next to no one seeing the incident firsthand, many had come to regard him in a new light. He had up and disappeared a few weeks after the incident, and no one had any time to thank him. Most villagers figured he had abandoned the village. As the duo continued their trek towards the Hokage Tower, word started to spread about their return. Slowly the crowd grew larger and larger as they made their way through the village. "What's with the crowd? I didn't think you had this many fans, Ero Sennin," Naruto asked. "I don't. I think they are all looking at you, boy. Word must have spread about you defeating the Suna Jinchuriki before our departure," Jiraiya responded, amused by the boy's perplexed look. "Well, this isn't the welcome I expected. Too much attention if you ask me," Naruto said, closing his eyes and starting up his whistling again. As the Hokage Tower came into view, the crowd of villagers slowly turned into fellow ninja regarding the duo. Naruto could feel the familiar chakra signatures around him, but he decided to spare himself the looks on their faces. Coming up to the tower, Naruto opened his eyes and found the smirking form of Shikamaru leaning against the door. Shikamaru nodded to Naruto as he walked through the doors. The redhead tossed him a smirk and a wink, making his way towards the stairs. "Well, out of the oven and into the frying pan, Jiraiya gestured outside of Tsunade's office. "Aye, let's get this over with. I miss my cave," Naruto replied as he entered the Hokage's office. "Who do you think you are to just barge in here without no?" Her voice hitched in her throat as she took in the two people who entered her office. "Is it really you? Are you back?" She asked quietly. Both nodded, allowing her time to rein in her emotions. It's about damn time Baka, she screeched, throwing a stack of papers at them. The paper went everywhere as she continued to throw objects from her desk. Do you know the trouble you caused me with your absence? The council has been barking down my neck for 5 years about not knowing where our Jinchuriki is. 5 years, damn it. Well, not exactly the best of welcomes, but I figured I was gonna have a few of these. Do you need the report now or can it wait until tomorrow? I'm sure there are a few interested parties and I don't want to retell almost 5 years of my life more than once. Naruto asked, casually dodging the projectiles still being launched his way. Tsunade calmed herself after hearing the request. Yes, you would be correct in your assumptions. Shizune, clear my schedule for tomorrow and the next day. Doesn't matter what I have booked, this is more important. Naruto, you may do as you please with the rest of today. After your report is given you will have a month off. I'm sure you could use some rest. Besides, I don't think I'll be able to send you away for at least that long anyways, she said with a wink. See ya tomorrow Hokage-sama, Naruto said as he exited the office. Making his way downstairs and out of the tower, he mumbled to himself, how long until I'm discovered? Shikamaru wouldn't betray me, but word travels fast. He stopped short when he felt a large killer intent from behind him. Turning around he started profusely sweating. Hey there Kurenai-sensei. Long time huh? Fuck, that was the wrong thing to say. This is going to hurt. Long time? Long time? You left without even telling me what was going on. And all you have to say for yourself after 5 years is long time? She yelled. Steam could be seen coming from her ears. Technically it wasn't quite 5 years, he rebutted. A tick mark made itself present on her face. I should just keep my mouth shut. Naruto heard a deep rumbling after that last thought. If he didn't currently fear for his life he would have had a snarky reply to the laughter of Kurama. Kurenai slowly marched her way towards the redhead, causing him to panic and flail his arms in surrender. Wait. I'll make it up to you. How about lunch? Yeah, I'll buy you lunch. Come on, I know you love Akamichi's barbecue. Naruto tried to get himself out of the punishment coming his way. Oddly enough Kurenai seemed to calm down as she reached him. Alright, I won't kill you. But only because our other guest for lunch is definitely going to kill you, she said with an all-too-sweet smile and tone. Ah crap, Naruto gulped. I'll go get her and bring her to meet you at Akamichi's. Go get us a private room MMK? She requested, although Naruto knew enough to recognize a command when he heard one. With a nod he disappeared. Naruto had made his way to Akamichi's, picking up a couple stragglers on his way in the form of Shikamaru, Kakashi, and Sakura. After obtaining a private room for the group, he found himself fiddling constantly, unable to sit still. Relax, she's going to be happy to see you. Hell, everyone is happy to see you after this long, Naruto, Sakura said, trying to calm her nervous ex-teammate. He gulped as the door opened and Kurenai walked in. She took a seat beside Kakashi and turned her attention back towards the door. Stood frozen in the doorway was Hinata. Her gaze was locked on the redhead in the room, and it was deathly silent. Time slowed as Naruto opened his mouth. Hey, Hina-chan, he said softly. Hinata jumped and let out an eep before falling unconscious. Ah shit, Hinata? Naruto panicked and jumped to catch her. Well, could have been worse I guess he asked with a nervous chuckle. Everyone just shook their heads. Troublesome, Shikamaru sighed out. He set Hinata down beside him as they ordered food. When the food was arriving, Hinata recovered from her fainting episode. She opened her eyes to the sight of a smiling Naruto conversing with the rest of the table. Slowly she sat up and quivered. Bringing her hand up to his face, the room fell silent. Tension filled the air as her hand feathered over Naruto's features. She let out a small gasp as he locked his gaze with hers. When her hand reached the scar on his left cheek, she began to tremble. She traced it down towards his chest, and a blush made itself present on her face. Slowly she put her whole hand on his left pectoral, and roughly dragged it down towards his stomach. A cough broke her out of her trance and she looked around. Kakashi's eyes smiled as Kurenai coughed to clear her throat. Should we vacate the room for a couple hours? She asked with a large grin. Hinata let out another eep, but before she could faint from embarrassment Naruto slapped his hand onto her shoulder. A small ceiling matrix appeared and stopped her from going unconscious. Curious, everyone flicked their gaze towards the redhead. With a shrug he said, "Anti-fainting seal. Now let's eat." Kakashi and Kurenai both face-faulted. Did he just use a forbidden torture and interrogation Fuinjutsu on his girlfriend? Hinata slid over to Naruto, pressing her side up against him as the group began to eat. As the feasting died down, conversation picked back up. "So, tell me, what did I miss the past couple years?" Naruto asked. He missed the glare Hinata shot him with his mistake on the time frame he was away. "Well, most of the genin from our age group are jonin now. We still haven't recovered Sasuke's body, nor have we heard anything about him being alive." On a brighter note, the three Suna siblings, Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro, have been coming to Konoha once every 6 months hoping that you have returned. Shikamaru answered. Sakura's face fell at the mention of Sasuke, which didn't go unnoticed by Naruto. "I see, well, if you haven't found his body, he's probably still kicking somewhere, going after his brother. He never was an easy one to kill," Naruto joked, trying to lighten the mood. "So I'm the only genin left, huh? Guess it can't be helped. You'll have to teach me now, Hina-chan," he joked, nudging her in the ribs with his elbow. She let out a squeak and nodded, not trusting herself to talk with the massive blush she had on her face. It seems her old habits have come back. Hopefully they disappear quicker than the first time, he pondered. Shikamaru grinned. "Despite how troublesome it is to have you back, you do bring entertainment wherever you go. Since I know you have a few weeks off, we should head to Suna sometime to see what the case cage wants from you." Naruto cocked an eyebrow at that. "The case cage? What would the case cage want with me? I'm sure he wants to thank you for saving him from losing complete control and killing his sister. You were made aware Gaara is the case cage, weren't you? You saved Temari from Gaara? I was not aware of this, Naruto-kun. Maybe you aren't such a nightmare after all. Why haven't I heard of this until now, Shikamaru?" Kurenai questioned. It was Gaara's wish to keep what happened during the invasion quiet until he could properly thank Naruto for his actions. Shikamaru answered. "Until now, only Kiba, Shino, Hinata, the Suna siblings, Tsunade and Jiraiya were aware of the details concerning the mission to subdue Gaara." Naruto unconsciously placed his hand on Hinata's thigh, giving it a squeeze for comfort. She laced her fingers in his and leaned closer towards him. Naruto didn't remember anything after protecting Temari, but he knew Hinata hated the memory. "I see, well, I guess we'll have to ship this little nightmare off to Suna for a bit then, won't we?" Kurenai replied. She had noticed the reactions of Naruto and Hinata to the memory and decided not to continue her prying. The night carried on with small talk and sake. Long after the moon rose, everyone started to stagger home. Naruto and Hinata were walking hand in hand throughout the village. As they came closer to the Hyuga compound, he cast a questioning glance towards her. Hinata cast her eyes to the ground, shook her head and pushed herself closer to him. Understanding, he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, keeping their hands interlocked, and guided her out of the village. It took the pair a bit longer to reach his cave than normal, considering their inebriated state. Walking through the entrance, Naruto gaped at the state. He expected it to be covered in dust, but he found he hardly recognized the place anymore. After walking through the genjutsu hiding the entrance, he found himself staring at a large open room with a fire pit in the middle surrounded by benches. What he found odd, however, was the missing crates and bed that he kept to one side. There was also a corridor at the back of the cave. Giving Hinata a perplexed look, she smiled before removing his trench coat. Tossing it on one of the benches, she noticed the white wrappings covering his arms. The white bandages wrapped from his hand up to his elbow on his right arm, leaving his fingers exposed, and they covered his entire left hand and arm up to his shoulder. How didn't I notice these before? Must be the sake, I guess. She shook off her observant glance, only to notice Naruto seemingly lost in his observations of her attire as well. She had a short, dark gray jacket left open over top of a long-sleeve blue shirt. The jacket had several black patches on it, and her headband was wrapped around her upper left arm. Her legs were covered in leggings matching her jacket, and she had a short black skirt on with several pockets for storage. She blushed at the thought of him observing her so openly. I hope he likes the change in my outfit. Kurenai always encouraged me to be bolder. Hinata took her jacket off and tossed it onto the bench. Do you like my new outfit, Naru-kun? She asked, fiddling with her hands as she did so. This seemed to break him from his trance, and he stepped forward. Taking her hands in his, he looked her in the eyes and nodded. "It suits you, Hina-chan." She smiled. It was a genuine and carefree smile. She felt as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She had worried Naruto wouldn't express interest in her after being gone for so long, but his actions so far extinguished that worry. "Come, let me show you what I've done with our home." She stopped abruptly with her back to him, frozen after what she said. Crap, he is going to freak out. I shouldn't have said th. "Lead the way, Hinata." Huh? She looked back and found him smiling softly at her. "Why, you mean you are." He cut her off again. "Don't fret so much, and show me what you've done to our cave, Hina-chan." "Oh, okay," she stammered out, pulling him by the hand again into the corridor at the back of the cave. He noticed that the corridor split off to the left and then to the right. She pulled him down the hallway to the left, which led into a room with a dresser, several crates along the wall, and a large bed. "It seems you weren't fond of my bed and decided to upgrade he asked with a smirk. She nodded as confirmation. "More room, and this one is comfier. We can return here later. I want to show you something I discovered a year ago." Yanking on his arm again, she dragged him out of the bedroom and down the right corridor. This one was a bit longer, but he also noticed that the air seemed to become humid. As he was pulled along, the hallway opened up into a small grotto. The air was so humid that it was visible. In the center of the room was a steaming pool of water, about 10 meters in diameter. Surrounding the edge of the water was thick green moss. Naruto stood with his mouth agape, marveling at the room Hinata had somehow carved into his dwelling. What? He stuttered out. "I used my Byakugan to look around one time about a year ago, and discovered a hollow with what seemed to be a pool in the middle. I decided that I would excavate a corridor to it like I had for the bedroom. This is what I found, a natural hot spring. Now turn around, and no peeking," she ordered. "Huh?" Naruto shot a confused glance at her but noticed she was starting to remove her skirt. Oh, Hinata, are you sure? Just be quiet and take off your clothes, Naruto-kun. I want to relax in the water and the steam is thick enough to keep our modesty intact once we are in the water," she said. "Not that I would mind anyways, I've waited for 5 years. Naruto just gulped and turned his back, starting to remove his bandages first. After removing his shirt, he heard the sound of a body entering the water. Shedding his remaining garments, he called out to make sure it was okay to enter the water. "Are you in?" "Yes, hurry up, the water is lovely," Hinata replied. Her voice sounded musical to Naruto. With a nod, he turned towards the water and slowly sank in. He let loose a large sigh of relief as the hot water covered his body. Taking a couple steps out into the center of the pool, he found the depth to be just under his shoulders. "You were right, Hina-chan, the water is lovely. I can feel my aches melting away." When she didn't answer him, Naruto took a couple steps towards the side and moved to turn around but froze when he felt 2 hands snake their way under his arms and around his chest. He could feel her face press against his back between his shoulder blades. The water was now just under his pectorals, so she was submerged up to her neck. Naruto, forgive me for being so forward," Hinata spoke from behind him. Her voice was laced in an emotion he couldn't quite place. Is this love? Lust? Why is she apologizing for? Oh, Naruto thought as he remembered the night before he left. Hinata pulled him towards the side of the pool and sat down on the bench carved into the stone. Keeping her face pressed into his back, she guided him down and pressed her body into his back. She picked up her legs and wrapped them around his waist. Naruto let out a little yelp as she maneuvered herself. He gulped as he felt her chest press into his back. "I'm sorry for being so forward, Naruto-kun, but Kurenai-sensei always tells me to be bolder, and I've been waiting 5 years. I wanted this before you left but you refused. I know why you refused, and I'm thankful you did, but my feelings haven't changed. If you don't desire me, can we at least stay like this a while longer?" Her voice was soft and pleading, but he could still notice the hint of something else. Naruto nodded and placed his hands on her legs. "I'm not very good with my feelings, Hinata, but I know that I have feelings for you. You've held a place in my heart for a long time now. I'm hesitant because of the name I've made for myself. The things I've had to do in Anbu, and the enemies of my family names, I don't want to cause you harm. You've seen the updated bingo books, right?" She nodded, choosing not to interrupt his confession, or whatever this was going to turn into. "There are still many things I don't know about myself and my late family. I don't want to endanger you because of my past. With everything Ero Sennin and I discovered during our travels, dangerous times are coming. You will find out when we give our briefing tomorrow, but I have a feeling I will be at the center of the storm to come." He trailed off, losing himself in thoughts of what was coming. "You still don't get it, do you, Naruto-kun? I refuse to let you walk alone. Now that you've returned, I won't let you disappear again. If a storm is coming, I will face it beside you. I want to walk beside you, Naruto. Whatever it is that is coming, let me face it with you. You aren't alone anymore." Hinata slid herself out from behind him as she finished talking. Pushing him back into the wall of the pool, she threw her leg over his lap and straddled him. Looking him in the eyes with a fierce expression on her face, she asked again, "Will you let me walk beside you?" Naruto brought his hand up and cupped her cheek. As he ghosted his thumb under her eye, a tear fell from his own. He nodded slowly, never breaking eye contact. "I will speak with your father tomorrow, and request his permission to pursue a relationship with you." Naruto paused, and with panic in his voice quickly added, "If you'll have me, that is." Hinata smiled as a tear fell from her eye. "Baka," she chastised, leaning forward and capturing his lips with hers. She brought her hands up to the sides of his face as he wrapped his arms around her lower back. Naruto pulled her lower body tight against his, deepening the kiss. Hinata wrapped her arms around his head and lifted herself up slightly, giving herself the advantage of height as she pulled her lips from his. Their face millimeters apart, gasping for breath, Hinata lightly kissed him once more before allowing herself to slide down and sit on his lap. She nuzzled her face into his neck and wrapped her arms around his head again. "I guess I can wait one more night. I have been waiting for 5 years anyways," she whispered. The couple stayed in each other's embrace in the grotto for a while, before Naruto noticed Hinata had fallen asleep. Smiling, he stood up, holding her in the same position with his hands under her thighs and carried her to bed. As Naruto woke up in the early morning, he found himself missing the warmth that was by his side throughout the cold winter night. Hearing sounds from the corridor, his curiosity got the best of him. He rose and put his pants on, venturing towards the main area of his cave. As he entered, a sweet aroma hit his nostrils. Whatever you're making smells delicious, Hina-chan." Hinata twirled around, startled by his entrance. "Oh, Naruto-kun, did you sleep well? I think we overslept a bit, so I'm making some cinnamon buns for breakfast. Hurry and go get dressed so we can get to the briefing faster." Naruto sighed, before turning around. Aye, Captain," he said with a wave over his shoulder as he made his way back to his bedroom. The couple ate quickly and then headed out towards Hokage Tower. After leaving the cave, Naruto unsealed a peculiar kunai and began spinning it on his finger. The kunai had Fuinjutsu markings on the handle, and the blade was 3-pronged. The middle prong resembled a normal kunai, but the two side prongs were very short, and stuck out at a 45-degree angle from the main blade. Naruto continued on with his right hand in his pocket and his left spinning the mysterious kunai. He was whistling a laid-back tune with his eyes closed. Hinata again noticed the bandages and remembered she forgot to ask about them last night. "Naruto-kun, why do you wear bandages on your arms now?" "I have numerous seals on my arms, and I use the bandages to cover them. If I ever come across another Fuinjutsu master, they might be able to recognize the seals, therefore I keep them hidden. Also, it looks cool," he replied, smirking and tossing her a wink. Hinata rolled her eyes at that. "Typical boy, so what is with this kunai? It isn't like anything I've seen before," she asked. "It is the same design as my father's. The seal on the handle allows me to use his signature technique." "Do you want to see it?" he asked. Smirking when she nodded her head, he pulled her tight against him. With a wink he said, "Hold on." In a flash the pair disappeared, materializing inside Tsunade's office. She spit out her coffee at the sudden intrusion. "What the fuck? Hinata? Naruto? You're an hour late," she bellowed. Turning to Jiraiya, who was currently sitting on a couch in the office with Shizune standing beside him, she asked, "Was that what I think it was?" Jiraiya smiled widely, giving her an answer. "I see. Well, now that you two lovebirds have arrived, let's get to the conference room." "Everyone else is waiting," Tsunade commanded. As she led her entourage down to the briefing room, she took this opportunity to warn Naruto. "People of great importance are here for this report, Naruto. It would be an opportune time to come forward about everything concerning your past." With that, she opened the door and led the group inside. Once inside, Hinata took a seat beside Tsunade and Shizune as Naruto and Jiraiya moved towards the front. Looking around, Naruto noticed that the full shinobi side of the council was present, including all clan heads. Several Jonin were in the back, and a few other people he did not recognize. With a sigh, Naruto looked at Jiraiya. "So, you or me?" he asked. Jiraiya let out a chuckle before waving his hand. With a second, more pronounced sigh, Naruto turned to the gathered crowd. "I'm sure you all know who I am, and that I have been gone for the past 5 years. Before I get into the details of my absence, there are a couple things I think I should clear up. As you know, I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. What you are most likely not aware of is that I am the only heir to Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki." He paused at the uproar, waiting patiently for it to die down. "As was the third Hokage's will, I hid this information from all but a very select few. Now that I am past the age of 16, I will be claiming the rights of Namikaze and Uzumaki clan head." A second uproar occurred, but one question rang out louder than the others. Hiashi stood and shouted out his question again. "How do we know your claims are true? You may resemble Kushina in your looks, but nothing about you looks like a Namikaze." Naruto sighed for seemingly the umpteenth time today. "I hoped I wouldn't have to do this, but oh well." He stopped spinning his kunai, showing it to the gathered people. "Still not enough? Alright." Naruto tossed the kunai into the wall at the back of the room. He let a smirk grace his face and disappeared in a flash. Before anyone could make a move, he spoke up from the back of the room. "Proof enough?" The room whirled around and Naruto caught the various emotions passing across the crowd's faces. Confusion, anger, rage, regret. Tsunade stood, planning to end this waste of time. "Shizune, please show Hiashi the document I requested you to bring." Nodding, Shizune procured the scroll, with Hirazen's wax seal on it, and handed it to the Hyuga head. Hiashi took it, and with a confused look he opened it. Silence captured the room as he read through it. A shocked look crossed his face as he reread the document. It would appear that what the boy claims is true. This is signed by Lord Third himself, and confirms everything this boy has said. Hiashi rolled up the scroll and handed it to Shikaku Nara. "Care to confirm my claims, Shikaku?" "No, I was made aware of these circumstances the day he was born." Turning to the rest of the room he raised his voice. "Does anyone want further verification of the claims?" Receiving silence he addressed Naruto. "You may continue your report, now that this uproar is over." Now that my claims have been verified, I will move on to my 5 years of absence." Naruto delved into his and Jiraiya's extended leave from Konoha. They left out several discoveries Naruto had made in his training, deeming them unnecessary for the crowd gathered today. The report lasted for the full 8 hours Tsunade had scheduled, and she dismissed everyone for the night. As people filed out of the room, a few stayed behind. Shikaku and Hiashi both approached Naruto. Shikaku spoke first. "I know you haven't finished your recount of your journey, but I wanted to ask you if you intended to stay in the Anbu or not now that you have returned. If you decide to leave the Anbu once again, I would make the motion to put you through the Jonin promotion exams. Take your time and think about it. I'll see you tomorrow." Naruto nodded in thanks. Looking over towards Hiashi, Naruto gave him an inquisitive look. "I imagine that since you stayed behind you have something you wish to speak with me about. It is a coincidence as I have something I wish to ask you, but it is better done in the privacy of your estate. Would you like to save what you have to say for later tonight, or is it urgent?" Naruto asked. Hiashi was surprised with the boy's manner of speaking. He didn't show him respect, nor disrespect, and he was quick to the point. "I suppose I could hold off. If you wish to speak with me in private I will expect your arrival at my clan's compound soon." "Have Hinata escort you to my office," Hiashi replied. "Very well, see you soon Hyuga-sama." This caught Hiashi flat-footed again. He didn't expect to be addressed respectfully by the boy whom had just seconds earlier neglected to address him in any manner of respect. Hiashi kept his surprise well hidden behind his mask of stone however, and took his leave. "Well, I guess the interrogation continues Would you please do me the honor of escorting me Hinata-sama?" Naruto jested. It earned him an elbow to the ribs and a smile from the girl. Turning around to address Tsunade and Shizune, he added, "Well, I'm off to the lion's den. See you tomorrow, maybe." He was pulled from the room by Hinata as he smirked at the remaining people in the room. Naruto walked beside Hinata as the couple made their way towards the Hyuga compound. Naruto was balancing a kunai on its point on his finger, a nervous tic that very few knew of. To the average onlooker it would appear as if he was simply unconsciously playing with the deadly tool. Hinata wouldn't have given it a second thought had she not noticed the shifting of his eyes. He almost always walks with his eyes closed. Is he nervous? Naruto-kun, are you nervous about my father? You shouldn't be, you know. Despite his outward appearance, he is capable of acting like a father. He gave no inclination of a response, at which Hinata frowned. She smiled a devious smile before attempting her next verbal assault on his nerves. Oh no, is the big bad red nightmare scared of something? What in the world could have happened? This elicited a sigh from the redhead. With a scowl he looked towards the girl. Why are you so cheery? If he doesn't approve it will cause a lot of problems. I don't care if he approves or not. Hinata stated, the tone she used left little room for argument, so he just sighed and looked at the approaching gate. Halt, state your business, the guard commanded. He is with me to see Hiyashi-sama, Hinata said, using her rarely released heiress voice. With a nod the guard opened the gate, allowing them passage. Approaching Hiyashi's study, Naruto slowed. Despite your thoughts on the matter, it would mean a lot to me if I could gain Hiyashi's blessing to court you. I don't want to create a larger rift within the Hyuga clan than already exists. Well, shall we? Hinata's eyes widened slightly at his declaration. Naruto hardly ever cared about someone's opinions on his actions. A swift knock on the door was followed by an authoritative, enter. As the couple stepped beyond the threshold of the study, Naruto noticed Hiyashi was seated on a cushion around a table with a teenage girl, whom he assumed was Hanabi, drinking tea. Ah, Uzumaki-san, or do you prefer Namikaze-san? Please have a seat. Hiyashi motioned to the two empty cushions across the table from himself and Hanabi. Thank you Hyuga-sama. As for my name, I haven't yet decided if I will take my father's name or keep my mother's. I guess it makes little difference. Most don't look past my status anyways, Naruto replied as he sat down. Hinata joined him and poured them both a cup of tea. As everyone settled in at the table, Naruto noticed the curious look Hanabi was giving him. Hanabi-sama is it? Forgive me for assuming but you bear a striking resemblance to Hinata-sama. Are you curious about my scar, or the wrappings on my arms? He asked, turning his head towards the younger girl. Hanabi looked down, embarrassed that she was caught staring. Hiyashi moved to scold her, but Naruto intervened. It is quite alright Hyuga-sama. I am used to more vengeful stares, so a curious one is welcomed. I'm sure your curiosity will consume you if it goes unsated, so please ask away Hanabi-sama, it's fine. Naruto smiled warmly at the girl, coaxing her out of her shell. Ah, okay. I was wondering about your scars, and why your hair is such a unique red color. I apologize if I am prying. She cast her glance down and to the side after finishing her inquiry. Well, my hair is a trait I received from my mother. The Uzumaki were infamous for having dark, almost blood-red hair. As for this scar, I got it from the demon blade Kabikirabocho. I had a run-in with Zabuza, the demon swordsman of the mist, and I suffered this wound during the fight. I made a mistake and this is the price I paid, Naruto explained, ghosting his hand across the scar tissue. Did you win the fight? Hanabi asked. Her excitement at hearing more of the tale was clearly visible. Naruto shook his head. No, the battle ended in a stalemate. My team and I ran into him again a couple months later at the end of our mission, and we defeated him. I think Kakashi-sensei even brought the sword back to Konoha, although I think your father would know more about that than I would, he answered with a smile. Is there anything else you are curious about Hanabi-sama? She was about to jump at the chance to further sat her curiosity until Hiyashi stepped in. Now Hanabi, I'm sure there is a reason our guest has come to speak with us. If you are that curious maybe you could bend his ear after the meeting, he spoke with practiced ease. Surely he had this exact conversation with her countless times, if the giggle from Hinata was anything to go by. I'd be glad to sat her curiosity at a later time. As for the reason I am here, it is twofold. The first, to hear what you had wished to speak with me about earlier today, and the second is to formally request your permission and blessing in courting your daughter, Hinata-sama. Naruto ended his statement by bowing slightly from his seated position. Hanabi's eyes shot open. Of all the things she expected to hear when her father requested her presence for a meeting, this was the last. As Hanabi's mouth slightly gaped, Hiyashi nodded, bowing his head slightly in thought. I see. Before I answer your request, I would ask you your intentions. I am sure you are aware that I have withdrawn my decision years ago about removing Hinata as my heir. Are you seeking to gain influence over my clan in the future? The Hyuga head asked. His tone was one seasoned from many political ventures. My intentions are nothing so underhanded. I care deeply for her. As I'm sure you are aware, she has been one of my only friends since a young age. I am sure I caused you many headaches when we were younger, and for that I apologize. I must clarify, however, that Hinata's companionship has been the single greatest treasure I have ever received. Naruto fixed the Hyuga head with a look of honest determination. He knew he had to make a compelling case, given his status. I see. As a father, I am relieved to hear those words. Many suitors have come for less noble reasons. If you do not seek to gain influence over the clan, then what would you do if she is declared my heir? Hiyashi focused intently on the redhead. The situation being proposed held numerous political ramifications if not handled properly. The boy was the sole remaining heir to two very powerful clans. I am the heir to two clans myself, and have yet to fully grasp the gravity of what lies ahead for me in that aspect. As such, I have no desire to take on a third clan, and I will leave Hyuga business to you and your daughters. If you wish to make Hinata-sama your heir, then at that time, we can evaluate and adjust accordingly. I am not here and asking for your blessing for any reason other than I love your daughter, Hyuga-sama, and I wish to have her by my side. Any and all complications that may accompany her, I would work through with her to find an agreeable solution. Hinata had tears in her eyes by this point. Her father had also taken notice. Hinata, what are your thoughts on this boy's request? He questioned, looking over towards her. She seemed surprised by the sudden question, and took a couple seconds to register she had been addressed. May I speak freely, father? He nodded, and she gulped, steeling herself for her coming statement. If you decide not to give this relationship your blessing, I would pursue it anyways. I have loved Naruto-kun for as long as I can remember. He pulled the shy demeanor I once had away, and has shown me nothing but kindness and friendship. I decided long ago that I would not be denied my happiness with him. Hiyashi was startled by the ferocity in her gaze. Her determination was evident, and for a moment he could see his late wife sitting in front of him, giving him her infamous look. To the room's surprise, Hiyashi smiled. It was a genuine and heartwarming smile. Hanabi once again found her jaw on the floor. She had never once seen her father smile like this. It was so foreign to her that she couldn't muster up the ability to even move. Very well. You have grown to be a fine young woman, Hinata. Your mother would be proud. As long as you pursue a relationship with Naruto, I relinquish your status as my heir, and pass it to Hanabi. I believe you will have your hands full being the matriarch of two clans, and being the head of a third would put unneeded stress on your relationship. I want for you what I ended up denying your mother. My duties to the clan had outweighed my duties to your mother's happiness, and I do not wish for you to be burdened by an excess of clan responsibilities. You have my blessing and permission. As he finished, Hinata let out a quiet sob and grasped Naruto's arm. She turned his head and pushed her face into his shoulder, trying to hide the tears in her eyes. Naruto allowed a warm smile to cross his face as he placed his hand on her thigh and gave a comforting squeeze. I believe I speak for both of us when I say this. Thank you, Hyuga-sama, for granting my request. Before you accept, I must insist you hear me out on why I wished to speak with you earlier today. Upon revelation of your lineage today, I feel it is my duty as a close friend of Minato's to apologize to you. I had not known he had a living heir, and that it was you no less. The night of your birth makes a lot more sense in hindsight. He always did have a peculiar relationship with Kushina. I am disappointed in myself for not discovering the truth. Hiyashi trailed off for a moment, a lost look in his eyes. Sorry, there are a lot of memories I have of those two, but I digress. I beg your forgiveness, Naruto, for not looking after you, as I should have done. I had not known, but it is no excuse. Instead, I had treated you with disdain for circumstances beyond your control. I have no excuse for my actions, and I hope that you can find it within yourself to forgive my foolishness. Hiyashi bowed deeply, his head almost touching the table as he finished his request. Hinata and Hanabi shot upright, frozen with looks of shock at the two men in the room. Never had the sisters seen their father ask forgiveness, and never had they seen him bow to anyone aside from the Hokage. He was much too proud for such actions. Hanabi began swiveling her head, looking between her father and this redhead that seemed to humble her father. Taking note of her reaction, Naruto let out a chuckle. It seems you have piqued your daughter's curiosity yet again, Hyuga-sama. I have never held any ill will towards you or any of the clans for that matter. I was intended to be a weapon, so I became one. I have understood the fear that the village holds for me for quite some time now. At this, Hiashi raised himself back to a seated position. Now, do you wish to quell your daughter's curiosity or should I? He asked with a smirk. Thank you, Naruto, your words have put me at ease. I'll relieve you of the responsibilities of easing Hanabi's curiosity, however I fear that you may experience a siege of questions once I am done, he replied, allowing a rare smirk to grace his face for a moment. As Hiashi turned to explain exactly who Naruto was, Naruto turned towards Hinata, and pulled her to his chest. He rested his chin on top of her head and whispered to her, so, what now? Hinata pulled back and gave him a questioning look. What? I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't expecting this kind of reply. With a sigh, Hinata lightly slapped him in the chest. Before she could speak, however, she found Hanabi sitting right beside her, staring up at Naruto with a mystified look. Naruto chuckled as he looked at her. Yes, Hanabi-sama? You don't have to address me so formally, just Hanabi is fine. And I want to ask you some more questions. Her excitement was bubbling over, and everyone could tell she was struggling to keep herself seated, even if she had relocated in excitement. Ah yes, I'm sure you have quite a few questions. What can I answer for you, Miss Hanabi? He asked, adding the joking miss instead of the proper suffix. She scowled at him for a moment before remembering her questions. Can you talk with it? Her face beamed with curiosity, and Naruto could tell she meant no harm by the question. It was simply a teenager's curious mind. Before he could answer, however, Hiashi cut in. Hanabi, that is wildly inappropriate. I apologize, Naruto, Hiashi said sternly. Ah no, it's fine. I hope she never loses that curiosity of hers, and she meant no harm with the question. As a matter of fact, I can speak with Kurama. He's sleeping right now, but I think he naps too much. Let's wake him up. Naruto plastered a devilish smirk on his face as Hanabi squealed. Hinata sighed and rubbed her temples as Hiashi tensed in concern. It's nothing to be concerned about. Here, take my hand, and don't freak out, Naruto reassured as he pushed some of Kurama's chakra to his hand. As he did so, a chakra cloak enveloped Hanabi. Naruto willed it to spread and soon it covered both Hinata and Hiashi as well. This is quite the peculiar technique, Naruto, but isn't it draining on your reserves? Hiashi questioned. Nah, I've worked on this for the past 6 years. I could safely shroud 100 people. The shroud simply gives extra protection in the form of Kurama's chakra to whoever it covers. Who is Kurama? Hanabi asked. Aftr her question, a deep voice rumbled in the four minds. I am Kurama, the Kyuubi. Kurama rumbled. His voice sounded slightly irritated. Hanabi shrieked at the sudden voice in her head. Hiashi had tensed as well, and Hinata just smiled. Speaking out loud for the sake of the others present, Hinata greeted Kurama. Hello Kurama, did you have a nice nap? She giggled as he let out a noise similar to a grumble. I was enjoying it, until someone decided to wake me. It is good to talk to you after such a long time, Hinata. Who are these other two? Their energy bears a strong resemblance to yours. This is my family, Hiashi Hyuga, my father, and Hanabi Hyuga, my younger sister. Hinata answered. As she looked over at her sister, she struggled to avoid breaking out in a fit of laughter. Hanabi had the most mesmerized look Hinata had ever seen on a person. Her eyes were the size of dinner plates and seemed to sparkle. Her mouth would be out of sight if not for the floorboards holding up. Mr. Fox, are you big? You sound big? Hanabi asked. The room face-faulted. Of all the things you could ask, that is your first question? They all thought simultaneously. Kit, it would be easier if you simply brought them inside. Kurama said. With a nod, Naruto performed a series of hand signs. Uzumaki Sealing Arts, Mind Palace. He shouted out, slamming his hand on the ground. A sealing matrix shot out from under his hand and crawled across his companion's skin. With a bright flash, Hiashi, Hanabi and Hinata opened their eyes to a large clearing surrounded by trees. The sky was a bright blue and a light breeze blew through the area. They immediately took notice of a large pit in the middle of the clearing that had Naruto in a meditative pose beside it. Approaching the redhead, Hinata sat down beside him. She watched as her father and sister approached the cage with caution. Peering over the edge, they took notice of a giant orange fox with 9 tails. It seemed to be sleeping. Naruto is keeping the jutsu active, and as such will not be able to interact with us here. This is his inner world, and this pit is the cage for Kurama. Not that the cage serves much function though, aside from a comfy place to nap, Kurama said as he crawled up from the pit, pushing the bars to the side. Whoa, Hanabi exclaimed as she stared up at the fox. Kurama ducked his head down and brought his nose right in front of the girl. He let out a puff of hot air that blew her hair around wildly, eliciting a giggle from Hanabi. Kurama nudged the girl with his nose, knocking her over onto her ass. You are an interesting one, child. Why do you not fear me as your father does? You haven't given me a reason to. Should I fear you? Hanabi rebutted. Kurama laughed at her reply, filling the clearing with a deep rumble. He padded over to where Naruto and Hinata were seated and lay down behind them. He placed his head directly behind Hinata, allowing her to reach up and scratch behind his jaw. The fox plastered a grin to his face, almost making him look sinister. This young one is interesting, I like her. Your reasoning is sound, little one. I have given you no reason to fear me. I am sure your father could tell you about my rather regrettable past, however. Tell me, how old are you, Hanabi? Hanabi gleefully pranced up to the fox and sat down in front of him. As Hanabi and Kurama engaged each other, Hinata waved her father over. With wary steps he approached her. I think you'll find Kurama isn't as scary as most of the villagers think. Before Naruto left, I used to have him cast this jutsu so I could give Kurama some variation in his company. Sit and listen to him and Hanabi, I'm sure you'll understand, Hinata said as she beckoned for him to take a seat. Hiyashi relented and sat down a couple feet away from his daughter. I have to admit, this is something I am very unfamiliar with. I couldn't have imagined in a million years being inside the inner world of the Jinchuriki, lounging in a meadow with the Kyuubi. Hiyashi admitted. Hinata just smiled and leaned back into Kurama's fur. Hinata and her father sat in a comfortable silence for a while as Hanabi pestered the giant fox with questions. Hiyashi seemed content if you judged it by his smile. So, what do you plan to do now, Hinata? Will you move into the Namikaze estate with Naruto? Will you continue living in our compound? She seemed to ponder it for a bit before answering. I think I will continue living at the Hyuga compound for now, and if I end up moving in with him then so be it. I doubt he will move into the Namikaze estate, however, she said with a smirk. He doesn't currently live at the estate? Where does he live then? Hiyashi questioned. He found it odd that the redhead didn't take up residence in his rightful estate. He lives in a cave outside the village. Hinata struggled to contain her laughter at Hiyashi's facial expression upon hearing the boy's living arrangements. His eyes widened and his mouth hung open slightly. Hinata anticipated his next question and answered before he could ask. He chose to live in the cave due to the poor treatment he received from the villagers. He continues to live there because he is used to it. It's rather cozy actually. He applied seals to construct a powerful illusion over the entrance and it is hard to find without either the Byakugan or exceptional sensory abilities. I see. We will have to have him over for dinner frequently then. I can't imagine living in a cave provides the best of meals. Hinata giggled at that, earning a raised eyebrow from her father. I wouldn't classify it as a normal cave. It has a functioning kitchen and a bedroom carved into it. I never could figure out how he got the kitchen in there though, probably Lord Third. Hinata explained. He is also quite the cook. Better than me, but don't tell him I said that, Hinata admitted with another giggle. The two fell back into content silence, until Kurama spoke up to all of them. I believe it is time for you to depart from my dwelling. Prepare yourselves. It was nice to meet you, Kurama. I hope we meet again soon. Hanabi said. She jumped up and latched herself onto his nose in a hug. Kurama snorted hot air on her before closing his eyes, settling in to take another nap. A bright flash enveloped the Hyuga family, and they found themselves back in Hiyashi's study. They all looked up and seen the smirking face of Naruto. I hope that put your worries at ease, Hyuga-sama, and I hope that answered some of your questions, Miss Hanabi. That was quite the experience, Uzumaki-san. I thank you for the opportunity. as I'm sure Hanabi does as well. I'm sure you are exhausted after the long day, and as such I will bid you and Hinata good night. Hanabi, say good night and meet me for dinner please. With that, Hiyashi rose and exited the office. Hanabi stood up with Naruto and Hinata. She turned towards him and sent him a look he had trouble recognizing. Lifting an eyebrow at her, he got a smile in return. Thank you Naruto. I hope Hinata brings you by more often, so I sat my curiosity. She gave a curt bow and left the room. Hinata moved to Naruto's side and took hold of his arm. Let me grab a couple things from my room and we can go, okay? She said with a smile. Naruto nodded and allowed her to lead him through the compound. She packed a bag with some clothes, bathroom necessities, and other things before returning to his side. Clutching his arm, she gave a smiling nod and led him off the clan grounds. As they walked through the village, Hinata happily wrapped her arms around Naruto's right arm. So, after tomorrow what are you going to do for a month? He was quiet for a while as he thought about her question. I think I'll go to Suna. When I return I will decide on if I am leaving the Anbu or not, Naruto decided. I hear Suna is nice this time of year. We could make it in a couple days at a leisurely rate, Hinata said. Naruto cocked an eyebrow at her. So I'll have company then? You just returned after 5 years. I'm not letting you run off without me anytime soon, she stated. The look in her eyes and tone in her voice left no room for discussion. Alright, point made. Let's get to bed so I can get through tomorrow. Today was exhausting, he relented with a sigh. Naruto had gotten through the second day of his report without much issue. He and Jiraiya finished at noon, and then answered questions for another couple hours. Tsunade had dismissed everyone, but asked for Naruto and Shikaku in her office. So, what's going on Hokage-sama? Naruto asked as she shut the door behind them. I wanted to ask you what you plan to do now? Will you stay in Anbu, join the regular ninja force, or go out again? Tsunade asked. I'm not sure yet. I was planning on going to Suna for a week or two during my forced holiday. I've heard that Gaara has been coming to Konoha frequently in search of me. I think I'll decide after I return. Shikaku, I was going to have you evaluate Naruto to see if he has Jonin standards. However, given the report we just received, and a brief overview of his skills from Jiraiya had me considering promoting him on the spot. First, I want your thoughts as the current Jonin commander, Tsunade asked. Shikaku brought his hand up to his chin in thought. He remained silent for several minutes. I think I would agree with your reasoning. He was en route to be promoted to Chunin during the exams 5 years ago, and I have a feeling that Jiraiya hasn't been fully transparent with his current abilities. Then it is settled. Naruto Uzumaki, I promote you to Jonin. Return in a month for your vest and for active duty. Understood? Tsunade ordered. Yes Hokage-sama, I will leave tomorrow for Suna, and I am assuming that Hinata will insist on accompanying me. Is there anyone else that you think I should take with me? Naruto asked. Bit of a restless soul, aren't you? Take Shikamaru with you as well. He has some things he could take care of in Suna. I'm what you could call a rambling man. The open road has always been enticing to me. A cold and alluring temptress she is. I will see you when I return. Good night to both of you. Naruto finished with a slight bow before flashing back to his cave. It will be good to be on the road again. I really am a restless soul, aren't I? Well, I'm sure it will come in handy in the coming storm.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.